Chapter 147. Nian Qingyun. You can't kill me. Have you forgotten that if it wasn't for me, you would have died in the ancient battlefield? If you kill me, your Taoist heart will be flawed. Lin Shi roared crazily, not only because of Nian Qingyun's sudden killing intent, but also because, with his current strength, if he used all his trump cards, he might be able to defeat Nian Qingyun. That day, when he was in the Ling people's camp, he didn't dare to use the full power of the spiritual fire, which was why he was defeated by Ling Xiao. If the two of them fought to the death, Lin Shi was confident that he had at least an 80% chance of killing Ling Xiao. After all, the magic of the burning scripture was not something that ordinary people could imagine, especially the fire lotus attack that Elder Ling had taught him. Once it was used, even a person in the later stage of Paong would be killed. However, with Lin Shi's current strength, once he used that attack, he would be in a weakened state for a long time. In other words, either the enemy died or he died. But now, if he fought with Nian Qingyun, he would not be able to deal with Ling Xiao. That bastard would not let him go easily. Maybe he was blocking the entrance of the relic, waiting for him to walk into the trap. Fortunately, he still had the last space divine talisman. As long as he could take the undying heart flame, he could leave this place and find a barren mountain to break through in peace. When he could enter Paong and comprehend the Taoist law, coupled with the power of the two heaven and earth spiritual fires, he could kill Ling Xiao with a wave of his hand. But now, it was the crucial time for him to subdue the spiritual fire. Once Nian Qingyun messed up his plan, he would be doomed eternally. Nian Qingyun, do you really not care about our old friendship? I said sorry to you, but it's because I love you too much. I don't want you to be taken by that bastard Ling Xiao. Don't you understand? Lin Shi sneered in his heart when he saw the hesitation in Nian Qingyun's eyes. Suddenly, he dispersed the flames around him. Okay. Since you want to kill me, I'll let you kill me. Come on. Seeing this, Nian Qingyun hesitated even more. She didn't have any feelings for Lin Shi, but he was right. If she killed him today, her Taoist heart would be covered in dust. At that time, if she wanted to break through, she would be disturbed by the demonic thoughts. Humph, Lin Shi, I'll spare your life today. I've cut off our karma. Next time, you won't be so lucky. Nian Qingyun turned around and walked towards the entrance of the hall. Her tone was extremely cold. Also, if you dare to touch Ling Xiao, I will kill you. After saying that, she felt that something was wrong. Why would she protect that bastard? His life is mine. I will kill him with my own hands to prove my great Tao. Qingyun's STSTS, TTTS Qingyun, Lin TTTS, TTTTS, TTTS, and all of this was because of that damn successor of the Ling clan. Ling Xiao. No, I won't kill you. I'll turn you into a corpse puppet and never let you enter the cycle of reincarnation. Beep, the son of destiny and the daughter of destiny have turned against each other. Congratulations to the host for plundering 200 luck points. Villain points increased by 2,000 points. Outside the hall, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a playful smile as he watched the beautiful figure in white leave in a flash. Only 100 luck points left. Sure enough, Nian Qingyun's cautious. Saving someone's life's karmas involved. If I can't cut off the karmas, I'll suffer a backlash. However, Ling Xiao's. If Lin Shi really died in Nian Qingyun's hands, I'll cry myself to death. After planning for a long time, the leaks was taken. As for Nian Qingyun, women's. She'll only affect the speed of our punches. Double quotes. Thank goodness. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and swaggered into the main hall. At this time, Lin Shi's body once again surged with monstrous flames. In front of him, the ink-colored ancient cauldrons emitted endless divine light. Purple and black flames transformed into the shape of a dragon, completely enveloping the cold white flames below. Withdraw! Lin Shi's eyes lit up with joy as he suddenly roared. The strange fluctuation that had filled the hall dissipated in an instant. The ancient cauldron's radiance dissipated and quietly floated above his head. I've finally succeeded. At this moment, Lin Shi really wanted to roar out loud to vent the anger in his heart. Amazing! Brother Lin, amazing! At this moment, a burst of applause suddenly came from the entrance of the main hall. Lin Shi's eyes narrowed. When he turned his head to look, Ling Zhao's figure had already landed in front of him. That spiritual fire's in this cauldron, right? Grandpa gave you this cauldron, right? Ling Zhao raised his head and looked at the ink-colored ancient cauldron in midair. His eyes revealed a hint of greed. At this time, he could feel that the cauldron's grade had reached the level of a high-grade Dao artifact. His Emperor's star robe's might was on par with his. With Lin Shi's identity and background, it was impossible for him to come into contact with such a divine item. The only explanation was Grandpa's. Brother Lin, I like this cauldron very much. Why don't you give it to me? After saying that, Ling Zhao waved his hand. Dazzling lightning instantly enveloped the ancient cauldron, wanting to suppress it. Ling Zhao? Lin Shi's expression froze. Then, his face abruptly turned sinister. Grandpa's? He called Grandpa's grandpa? Damn, and you're still saying there's no relationship between you two? You're even calling Grandpa. If Grandpa's hadn't colluded with Ling Zhao in advance, Ling Zhao wouldn't have known Grandpa's grandpas and not Grandpa's grandpas? Damn s. At this time, it wasn't that he didn't want to leave. It was just that he was unwilling to watch Ling Zhao snatch the spiritual fire and the green demonic ancient cauldron from him. Transforming the spiritual fire into a lotus was his biggest reliance. This reliance was prepared for Ling Zhao. Ling Zhao was stunned when he saw Lin Shi's suddenly trembling body and pale face. The Chosen Ones and the Ancient Remnant Souls had a one-sided conflict. Congratulations to the host for plundering 100 luck point. Villain points increased by 1,000. Beep. The Chosen One's destiny's luck has been completely lost. Killing will give you an additional reward. What the F***? What did I say wrong? Oh right. Lin Shi must be wondering how I knew he had an old grandpa's. God's perspective, he wouldn't understand even if I told him. Previously, he had heard the system's notification saying that Lin Shi's and the old grandpa's trust had decreased. Ling Zhao originally thought that the two of them must have had some conflict because of the failure to obtain the spiritual fruit of Dao. But something doesn't seem right? Lin Shi doesn't look like he's just furious. Why does he look like he's resentful? Could it be? Ling Zhao narrowed his eyes and a playful smile appeared on his face. His existences in the eyes of others was simply incomprehensible. But in this world, how could there be something impossible? Therefore, there was room for imagination. Looking at Lin Shi's expression, it was obvious that he must have guessed something. Of course, it couldn't be because of Ling Zhao's identity as a traitorous author. It could only be something else. For example, how did Ling Zhao know of Elderling's existence? Wonderful! Once the Chosen One's imagination started to fill in the gaps, it's really lethal. Just as I thought. When did it start? Lin Shi sighed and a trace of loneliness flashed across his eyes. This scene was extremely similar to those resentful men who caught adultery at the scene in his previous life. What? Brother Lin, what are you talking about? Ling Zhao snickered in his heart. To be honest, he wasn't afraid of any remnant soul's body. According to Lin Shi's settings, the old grandpas in the ring must have been an existence that could intimidate a region. Even if he was one of the strongest in the ancient era, Ling Zhao couldn't help but be cautious when facing such a person. After all, no matter how strong Nine Nether was, She was at most a peak divine king or a first-grade divine emperor when she was alive. This old grandpa's grandpas could have been in the revered realm or even the saint realm. Chapter 148. Back in the northern wilderness ruins, the ancient remnant soul that Yi Fan had awakened had almost killed Ling Xiao in one blow. Although that person's cultivation realm was a little impressive, he had also fallen for millions of years and had even used his own cultivation to seal the immemorial demonic blade. As such, there was not much soul power left. Even so, Ling Xiao had still broken a peerless Tao artifact to escape death. Now, although Lin Shi's luck had dissipated, who knew how much strength that old man had recovered? Therefore, Ling Xiao had to be more cautious. Villains often died because of carelessness. I'll let you make 3 moves. Boom. Have you not seen enough plots of being killed in one move? Now, Lin Shi had obviously entered a state of imagination. He and that old man had turned against each other. For Ling Xiao there were endless benefits. What am I saying? You're still pretending. Fine, fine. I'll let you pretend. Lin Shi sneered and was about to take off the ring on his finger. Like hell I'll believe you. The two of you are obviously acting together. But on second thought, he hesitated. According to Elder Ling, he had sealed the Tian Yuan mystic realm back then because he had discovered an ancient ruin. It was the place where an almighty had fallen. There was even an immemorial emperor flame, which was ranked in the top 3 of the spirit fire list. If he killed him now, that mystic realm would have no fate with him. Luckily, Elder Ling was now in a deep sleep. This way, it would not be considered a falling out. This rotten old man was indeed very bad. Next, Lin Shi just had to be careful and feed Elder Ling some supplements every day. He would not be able to cause any trouble. As long as he found that mystic realm, Elder Ling's value would be completely squeezed dry. When the time came, he would definitely make that old man kneel down and beg for his forgiveness. Only then would he understand who was the true son of destiny in this world. Looking at the constantly changing expression of the young man in front of him, Ling Xiao was completely stunned. Damn. Lin Shi's imagination was a little serious. Sometimes he would laugh and sometimes he would cry. It felt like he had already imagined his entire life in this short period of time. Ling Xiao shook his head. Suddenly, lightning surged around him. At the same time, he changed his hand seals and condensed a terrifying lightning sun above Lin Shi's head. Sorry, I'm going to take your life while you're imagining things. Buzz. Terrifying lightning fell from the sky, and Lin Shi's face instantly turned pale. However, by the time he reacted, the great path Thunder Sun had already enveloped him. F***CK. I'm not ready yet, I haven't even used my trump card, and you've already made your move? What a beast. This Ling Xiao is a beast. Intense pain assaulted Lin Shi, and he felt as if all the skin on his body had split open. The thick smell of blood instantly filled the air. However, Ling Xiao's eyes were fixed on the ancient cauldron in midair. Merging with the heaven and earth spirit fire meant endless danger to anyone. Even though Ling Xiao has a lot of tricks up his sleeves, and all of them are top-notch in this realm, but we don't have the experience. In the past, we've seen how the children of destiny endured hardships and managed to completely merge with the spiritual fire only after a narrow escape. However, they have the help of the old man. It seems that we still have to deal with that ancient remnant soul. He must have the method to merge with the spiritual fire. As long as we master the technique, teacher said that we can even pour oil through the mouth of a copper coin. However, just as Ling Xiao waved his hand and was about to completely suppress the ancient cauldron, his face suddenly froze. That's not right. Why didn't the system send out any notification when I killed the child of destiny? At this moment, he clearly felt a wave of extremely terrifying heat surging out from within the lightning sun. At the same time, thunderclouds began to gather in the sky above the entire hall, covering thousands of miles. Streaks of terrifying lightning meandered and roared, as if they were going to crush all living things. There were a few familiar scenes. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, and the sword Dao Law instantly condensed in his hand. However, before he could swing his hand, he saw a figure shrouded in flames suddenly tear through space and disappear from the hall. At the same time, the system's voice leisurely sounded. The child of destiny has broken through in the face of danger. Luck points increased by 1,000. The killing mission has been delayed. Damn it! I was careless. Ling Zhao's face was immediately filled with shock. He should have guessed that this child of destiny, who was modeled after the Flame Emperor, would definitely not be as easy to kill as the previous ones. However, he was really surprised that this villain could still break through before his death after losing all his luck. Although this was indeed a cliché, it could be said to be a classic. Ling Xiao did not expect that he would be lucky enough to see it with his own eyes. The villain died because of carelessness. The alarm bells were ringing. He abandoned the cauldron and the spiritual fire and ran away just like that? This Lin Shi has become a coward. According to the usual routine, when the child of destiny broke through before his death, wouldn't he have to publicly humiliate and crush the villain? Why was the plot a little wrong this time? However, another 1,000 luck points. It seemed that this Lin Shi had an even greater opportunity. It was even more terrifying than this heaven and earth spirit fire. Otherwise, the heavenly Tao would not have protected him like this. It was a pity that after today, Lin Shi's Tao heart would most likely be shattered. Otherwise, he would not have run away so decisively. Moreover, from the previous system notification, Ling Xiao also knew that his relationship with that ancient mighty figure had been completely broken. After all, there was no such thing as absolute loyalty in this world. Loyalty was just a method used by those in power to control people's heart. Yes, your loyalty is commendable. I will bestow upon you the title of Righteous Marquis. In the end, the bargaining chip to maintain loyalty was still benefit. Whether it was fame or status, wealth was even more direct. And the most direct betrayal was, of course, to give him more irresistible temptations. Misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. At this moment, Lin Shi was most likely certain that the old man had betrayed him and was thinking of how to kill him. Hee little cutie, charge. Bring me to riches and find more opportunities. However, just as Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and was about to put the ancient cauldron in the air into the 8 desolation glazed pagoda, the space in the entire hall suddenly fluctuated for a moment. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, but the corner of his mouth revealed a playful smile. There was actually someone who did not know what was good for him and dared to snatch the opportunity from him? Was it because his fierce name was not fierce enough? Or was it another ant who thought he could do it? Buzz. The space trembled, and a strange fluctuation instantly enveloped the entire hall. At the same time, a black-clothed figure suddenly appeared out of thin air. His face actually carried a wisp of the joy of a mantis stalking a cicada. Junior brother Ling, long time no see. Hearing the voice, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows, but there was no panic in his eyes. Instead, there was a bit of surprise. Zhuge Luyun? Was this guy's brain short-circuited? He actually dared to have designs on him? Or did he think that he was stronger than Lin Shi? With this senior brother's steady character, if he did not have something to rely on, he would not dare to appear rashly. So it's senior brother Zhuge. Ling Zhao's gaze was like a sword, instantly tearing apart the void. Zhuge Luyun only smiled indifferently, and his Paong aura suddenly surged out. Chapter 149. Paong State? Is this what you're capable of? Eldest senior brother, I see that you're quite interested in this. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He had already guessed Zhuge Luyun's cultivation level. A eldest senior brother of a supreme Taoist orthodoxy could not possibly be a Xianqing. Even the other true disciples of the great elder's home had broken through to Paong state. Although this eldest senior brother's talent was not outstanding, he was definitely not useless. Moreover, he had a steady personality and a strong Tao heart. Even if such a person lacked talent and providence, he would still be able to reach the peak of the martial Tao. However, Ling Xiao did not expect this steady eldest senior brother to be so arrogant. He was merely in Paong state and was not a Tao law demon. He did not have any providence to speak of. How dare he have designs on Ling Xiao? Junior brother Ling, there's something I want to verify with you. Did Lin Shi really take the spirit fruit of Tao? Zhuge Luyun blinked his big innocent eyes. He looked naive and honest. However, this question sounded like a trap. Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with realization. It was too obvious. Since Zhuge Luyun dared to show himself, he must have thought that he could do it. However, with his Paong state ability, how could he be so sure that he could kill Ling Xiao? He must have other trump cards. Other than that fire wolf, there should be no one else who cared about the spiritual fruit of Tao, right? Could it be that the two of them had joined forces? That was true. What was so rare about a spiritual fruit of Tao? Compared to the spiritual fire of heaven and earth in front of him, it was not even worth mentioning. However, with Fire Wolf's identity, he would definitely not dare to offend the Ling people. He could not even afford to offend any of the sects that had entered the historical remains. However, if someone dared to bear the crime of killing Ling Xiao, it was likely that no one would miss out on this heavenly opportunity, especially since the Fire Wolf had cultivated the law of fire. If it was a water wolf, he probably wouldn't be tempted. Wonderful. He was originally a minor character who would not live for more than 3 chapters. Unintentionally, he perfectly fit the plot and had more chances to show his face. Haha, senior brother Zhuge, are you doubting my character? Besides, it's just a spirit fruit. Do you think I'd want it? Ling Xiao sneered with a look of disdain. To be honest, Ling Xiao really didn't care about a spirit fruit. Even if there wasn't an exact copy in the system, it wouldn't be difficult to find a similar replacement. The main thing was that Lin Shi wanted it. How could he let the Son of Destiny have his way? After all, these opportunities would trigger a new storyline for them. Either they would become stronger, or the people around them would become stronger. Of course, Ling Xiao wouldn't let that happen. A soft persimmon was easier to pinch. Zhuge Luyun narrowed his eyes. Based on his understanding of Ling Xiao, there was an 80% chance that the spirit fruit was with him. However, what made him slightly puzzled was, when did Ling Xiao's personality change? In the past, Ling Xiao was arrogant and domineering. He did not put anyone in his eyes at all. Although the current Ling Xiao was as arrogant and domineering as before, Zhuge Luyun felt that he seemed to have become more shrewd. He couldn't let him continue to grow. Otherwise, even if he hid in the savage swamp, he wouldn't be able to escape from the claws of this descendant of the Ling people. Haha, it doesn't matter. Regardless of whether the spirit fruit is with you or not, you will definitely die today. Zhuge Luyun smiled indifferently and raised his head to look at the ancient cauldron above the hall. He had done quite a bit of research on cauldrons. The strange fluctuation that enveloped the hall was formed by his natal spiritual treasure, the sky-imprisoning divine cauldron. This ancient cauldron was personally bestowed by the myriad Tao demon master, Wan Rin Di. Its might was unparalleled, and it formed its own space. This was also the reason why he didn't use the Chaos Cauldron when he obtained it. After all, 2 spirit treasures with similar uses didn't have much meaning to him. However, the ancient cauldron in front of him that was emitting a dim light instantly attracted Zhuge Luyun's gaze. Tao artifact. It was definitely a Tao artifact. He didn't expect it. Today, he came here to kill Ling Xiao. He didn't expect that there would be an unexpected harvest. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge. Hey, wake up! Ling Xiao waved his hand and a ray of lightning instantly shone brightly. It turned into a palm print out of thin air and landed in front of Zhuge Luyun. Despicable. Zhuge Luyun's eyes slightly congealed. Boundless demonic light instantly surged out from his body and faintly turned into a demonic shadow that enveloped his body. Slap. However, no matter how strong Zhuge Luyun was, he was only at the initial stage of the Paong realm. How could he be Ling Xiao's opponent? Of course, Ling Xiao didn't use his full strength for this palm. He only casually waved his hand. A clear sound of a slap instantly resounded and Zhuge Luyun's figure was actually slapped away. Senior Martial Brother, are you awake? Don't think blindly. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. However, a hint of pondering flashed past his eyes. When he was at the profound clear stage, he once relied on his demonic body to kill a Paong realm cultivator who had comprehended the power of law. Now that he had stepped into the Paong realm, he wondered if he could use the means he had to kill a divine overlord. Ling Xiao. You! Zhuge Luyun's figure landed heavily on the ground. Dust and smoke filled the sky and a trace of blood instantly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. A clear palm print appeared on his face, and there was a faint smell of burnt flesh. However, at this moment, there was still no hint of panic in his eyes. Instead, there was a hint of relief. He could see Ling Xiao's talent at a glance. Before this, he thought that with his strength, even if he couldn't defeat Ling Xiao, he could still hold on for a while. However, it seemed that the invincible immortal appearance wasn't just for show. But so what? So what if you could suppress an entire realm and even kill an enemy who was above a realm? Could it be that you could cross two realms and kill a divine overlord? One should know that in the current Xingzhou, if the venerables didn't appear, emperors were the strongest. All the supreme orthodoxies were controlled by emperors. Although there were many divine kings, they definitely had the qualifications to establish their own section. Although Huolang's cultivation hadn't truly stepped into the divine king realm, he was at the peak of the divine overlord realm. Although a wild mountain demon like him couldn't be compared to an ancient sect's divine overlord realm, he was still at the peak of the divine overlord realm. If he couldn't even take care of an ant in the Paong realm, then what was the point of dividing the realms? If you could destroy the heavens, earth, and air, even divine kings would be your grandsons. The end of the story. Senior brother, everyone's time is precious. Otherwise, someone will scold me again. What skills do you have? Quickly show them. Ling Xiao sighed. Calculating the time, it was about time for Qinlong to walk out of the illusionary realm. He didn't want to miss out on the upcoming show. Sigh, how sad. In this world, there would be one less heartless young Masterling and one more scapegoat young Masterling. Skills? Haha, looks like junior brother Ling Xiao has guessed it. Is the sadness in your eyes because of the regret before your death? Zhuge Luyun looked at the young man in front of him. Especially the pity that flashed in the young man's eyes, it made him feel an indescribable joy. Regret and whatnot were indeed the most pleasurable things. Chapter 150. No, I just feel that the Universal Demon Sect will lose another peerless genius today. Sigh, what a pity, senior brother. Originally, I planned to look for you after the engagement. I know that there are some misunderstandings between us, but you and I are both true disciples of the Demon Sect. We should work together. Ling Xiao sighed, but there was an inexplicable playfulness at the corner of his mouth. With Zhuge Luyun's steadiness, even with Huolang's help, the reason why he dared to make a move on him was probably because of the fear in his heart. He was afraid that he would kill him one day, so he was in a hurry to make a move. He was right. Ling Xiao had never planned to let go of this senior brother of the true disciples. Even if the sect master pleaded for mercy, would sparing the life of a person who was full of resentment be enough to earn his respect? No. Sparing him would only make him feel more ashamed. If he saw the opportunity one day, he would probably still make a move on him without hesitation. This kind of person could not be left alive. Moreover, there was no friendship between the two of them. Killing him would not affect Ling Xiao's Dao heart. Of course, with the help of the system, his Tao heart would not affect his cultivation level. However, it would more or less affect his comprehension of the great Tao. Be careful. Most villains die because they are overconfident. Focus on the main point. As villains, we have to pretend to be the most awesome and walk the most stable path. Otherwise, once the path collapses, we will be consigned to eternal damnation. Are you telling the truth? Looking at the expression on Ling Zhao's face, Zhuge Luyun was indeed hesitant for a moment. In the blink of an eye, his face turned gloomy again. In the end, he still coveted the position of the young master of the Universal Demon Sect. Especially since this position was originally his, but because Ling Xiao suddenly joined the sect, he had to give it up. This feeling was like, I have already taken off my pants, but you are telling me that you are a man? Zhuge Luyun could not take this lying down. Moreover, he had already promised Hualang that the spiritual fire would be his. If he were to compromise now, do you think the fire wolf would swallow him alive? Ling Xiao, stop pretending. Everyone in the Xingzhou continent knows about your temperament. Do you really think I'll be so easily deceived by you? Zhuge Luyun coldly snorted. His face was filled with resentment. Sai, senior brother, you don't know. The sect master came looking for me. I can choose not to give you face, but his face. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled bitterly, but he was happy in his heart. At this moment, the system's voice continuously resounded in his mind. It is very obvious that Zhuge Luyun's heart is already filled with regret. Wonderful. The villain points had to be taken from the minor characters with names. That was the fastest way. When he truly regretted it, if we fight again, it will definitely be very exciting, right? In life, we should give others more surprises. Only then can we live up to our reputation as the light of righteousness. What? Master? As expected, when he heard Ling Zhao's words, Zhuge Luyun's eyes congealed. His heart was filled with regret. If it wasn't for the fact that his life was in danger, he naturally wouldn't dare to personally take action against Ling Xiao. As for the firewolf, now that he had already kept it in the beast trapping pouch, if he were to bring it back to the sect, many elders would probably be very happy. After all, the monster core of a deity overlord great monster was a treasure. Junior brother. Actually, senior brother, you don't have to say any more. Since you have already decided, let's see who has more tricks up his sleeve today. Ling Zhao's expression suddenly became serious, even his tone carried a hint of decisiveness. Hearing that, Zhuge Luyun was instantly stunned. Damn it! What did I decide? Am I not going to betray you? Why aren't you giving me a chance? You. Fine. You forced me to do this. Zhuge Luyun didn't know how he released the firewolf. At this moment, he only felt that his mind was in a daze. The development of the situation didn't seem right. However, he couldn't tell what was wrong. He came to kill Ling Xiao because he was afraid that the latter would kill him. However, Ling Xiao also said that he had always wanted to bury the hatchet with him. Even the sect master had communicated with him. This devil sect's young master didn't have any intention of killing him. But today, since he wanted to kill Ling Xiao could only take action. In that case, this junior brother didn't seem to be in the wrong. He was only forced to make a move. The one who was in the wrong was actually himself. Zhuge Luyun swallowed his saliva fiercely. I was too careless. Boom! A monstrous heat surged out. A fiery red figure suddenly appeared in front of Ling Xiao. Ling people brat, it really was you who stole my spirit fruit. A hint of anger flashed across Fire Wolf's eyes, and a bloodthirsty fierceness appeared on his face. He didn't hear the conversation between the two of them. However, since Zhuge Luyun released him, it was obvious that he was prepared to make a move on this descendant of Ling people. Senior, who told you that the spirit fruit is in my hands? Ling Xiao didn't feel surprised at all. The calmness on his face caused Zhuge Luyun and Firewolf to be stunned at the same time. He was actually not afraid at all? Facing a peak Divine Lord expert, this youth whose cultivation was only at the Paong realm, was actually not panicking at all? There's a ghost. There's definitely a ghost. Firewolf turned around and looked at Zhuge Luyun cautiously. However, at this moment, the latter's expression seemed to be somewhat sluggish. He immediately felt uneasy. Could it be that these two senior brothers wanted to join hands to trick him? But if that was the case, why did he release him? Wouldn't it be better to directly bring him to the Myriad Tao Devil sect? Sigh, I'm a person who will eat anything when I'm ruthless, but I won't eat injustice. Senior, if you don't believe me, I can give you the Qianquan bag. Take a look for yourself. As he spoke, Ling Xiao actually threw the Qianquan bag towards Firewolf. Frank and open, without any pretense. Firewolf was a little hesitant. Seeing that Ling Xiao didn't seem to be lying, could it be that this true disciple of the devil sect lied to him? Senior. Zhuge Luyun clenched his teeth and finally looked at Ling Xiao meaningfully. Perhaps that spirit fruit has already been eaten by him? It's useless to talk about this now. The spirit fire is in the ancient cauldron, why don't? Hearing this, a hint of hesitation flashed across Firewolf's eyes. Zhuge Luyun was right. It was a little too late to regret now. Since they had shown their killing intent towards this disciple of the Ling people, the Ling people would definitely not let them off easily. If that was the case, why not go all the way? As for Ling Zhao's current actions, he was probably trying to make the two of them turn against each other. Only then would he have a chance to escape. It had to be said that imagination was really something. Looking at the ruthless expression on Zhuge Luyun's face, Ling Xiao finally nodded his head. Suddenly, a ray of light bloomed in his eyes. There was an endless amount of villain points to plunder. The main thing was that there was still a good show waiting for him at the entrance of the ruins. If he dawdled for a while longer, Qin Ling would probably be hammered to death. Sigh, all right. Since the two of you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Chapter 151. Ling Xiao. You still dare to be arrogant when you are about to die. This place has already been sealed by my heaven-imprisoning cauldron. Today, you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Zhuge Luyun coldly snorted. The hesitation in his eyes had completely disappeared. Although he had a steady personality, he wasn't an indecisive person. Although killing Ling Xiao would bring him a lot of trouble, it would also bring him many benefits. As for who would take the blame for this, as long as I can trick this Firewolf into the demon trapping pouch, everything else will be easy. After all, the enemy of 10,000 people is my master. To be honest, senior brother, as a villain, I'm not as good as you. Ling Xiao sighed, and a layer of light suddenly lit up in his eyes. The Firewolf also took a deep breath, and the flames around his body suddenly surged. He was determined to obtain this spiritual fire. Otherwise, he would have no hope of becoming a divine king in this life. Ling Xiao, let's see what other tricks you have. Although the demonic qi on Ling Xiao's body was terrifying, Zhuge Luyun didn't panic at all. No matter how many trump cards you have, in front of absolute strength, it was useless. Then, senior brother, open your dog eyes wide and take a good look. Ling Xiao grinned. In front of him, two figures suddenly broke through the air and quietly stood in midair. Woo! The sky demon qi surged out. The temperature of the entire hall seemed to have dropped to the freezing point. Stacked Shadow and Mi Yong bowed towards Ling Xiao, their faces filled with reverence. Master! The Firewolf didn't even hesitate as his figure flashed and wanted to escape. How could he not feel the terrifying and ferocious aura emanating from the two people who had suddenly descended? Although he was in the divine overlord realm, he was just a wild mountain demon. How could his fighting strength be compared to a true ancient race expert? Furthermore, for some reason, the aura of the two demonic figures wasn't just terrifying. It actually contained a trace of true demonic intent. "Where are you going?" Stacked Shadow laughed, and his figure instantly disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the firewolf. At this time, the sect disciples in the ancient palace had basically all left. Even if there were a few people left, they would probably only be searching for treasures in the periphery. If Ling Xiao was not wrong, the experts of the Cloud Millet Immortal sect should have already arrived here. However, if they had the slightest bit of brains, they would definitely not dare to enter the ruins. This was the territory of the Ling people, and he was the descendant of the Ling people. Naturally, no one would interfere when their peers competed for treasures. However, if the Cloudy Millet Immortal sect's experts dared to enter the secret realm, they would definitely attract the suspicion of the Ling people. If you say that you came down here just to look for someone, would anyone believe you? You said that you would love me until the end of time. Why did you turn around and sit on someone else's little wild horse? Therefore, things like oaths shouldn't be taken lightly. He was just trying to lighten the mood. Deep in love, everyone shook, hugged, bumped, and screamed. Tomorrow was a new day. So, I worked hard day and night until I sold 2 kidneys and drove a Mustang. But you told me that the door of the sports car is too low and that you like Big G now. F***CK. Damn it. Lord Ling Xiao, I have no intention to be your enemy. It was all Zhuge Luyun who lied to me. If you let me leave, I promise that I will not tell a third person about today's matter. Huolang's expression froze as panic could be seen in his tone. Although I really want to believe you, but I trust dead people more. Ling Xiao sneered. Before Zhuge Luyun could react, Mi Yong's figure had already appeared behind him. Gulp. Big senior brother, it's not that you can't be a villain, but you clearly don't have the qualifications. Ling Xiao shook his head. However, he did not immediately kill him. Instead, he placed his gaze on that god overlord Huolang. I will give you a chance. If you can withstand a few of my attacks, perhaps I can give you a chance to live. A few attacks? You? Pucci. Huolang sneered in his heart. However, his face revealed a grateful expression. Many thanks to young master for not killing me. Not to mention a few attacks, even if young master were to hit me with a few hundred attacks, Xiaohu would be willing. Huolang took a deep breath. At this moment, he could not help but think that when young master makes his move later, he must cooperate and spit out 2 mouthfuls of blood and pretend to be dispirited. Otherwise, once young master is unhappy, he is afraid that he will lose this chance. A few hundred attacks? Ling Xiao nodded his head and sneered. His eyes flickered with soul light as a majestic aura instantly spread out. This ripple Huolang's fierce eyes slightly congealed. The contempt on his face suddenly froze. God King! How is this possible? You are actually a God King. At this moment, Zhuge Luyun's legs went soft as he collapsed onto the ground. How is this possible? God King? A 17-year-old God King expert? What the F***CK, this is ridiculous. Are you F***King kidding me? Ling Xiao did not care about the two's fear. The corner of his mouth slightly curled up as his eyes shone with soul light. Above his head, it transformed into an ancient seal. Buzz. The space trembled as the sound of Tao resounded loudly. Even the sky-imprisoning cauldron that enveloped the hall faintly trembled, as if it could not withstand the power of Ling Xiao's seal. Great desolate sky-imprisoning seal, one seal to suppress mountains and rivers. Boom. On top of the ancient seal, divine light circulated. An aura that could suppress heaven and earth instantly rippled out. At this moment, Ling Xiao finally understood why those children of destiny had to shout out the name of the attack before they made their move. It's so imposing. Everyone, pay attention. I am going to act cool. Open your dog eyes wide and look carefully. No. At this moment, Looking at the terrifying soul seal that descended from the sky, Huolang's eyes were bloodshot. Immediately, the flames outside his body soared into the sky and vaguely transformed into a wolf's shadow, crashing towards the ancient seal fiercely. Boom! A terrifying loud sound immediately reverberated throughout the entire ancient ruin. Even the countless sect disciples who were watching at the entrance felt the entire barren mountain tremble violently at this moment. Earthquake! Earthquake! Run! However, just as they were about to run down the mountain with their spiritual power, the shaking disappeared instantly. The elders of Yunshu sect narrowed their eyes and looked at each other. They all saw the shock in each other's eyes. The fluctuation just now was obviously caused by the collision of the attack, and it must be the attack of a divine lord or above. But who dared to covet the fortune here under the eyes of Ling people? Ling Ping, the governor of Sunset City, also frowned, but he did not enter the ruin in the end. Instead, he silently crushed a sound-transmitting talisman in his hand. In the ancient hall, Huolang's eyes were wide open. He watched the ancient seal shatter the void, crush everything, and finally fall on him. No! Gulp! Seeing this scene, Zhuge Liuyun's legs trembled, and a wonderful smell suddenly drifted away. So cruel! Ling Xiao actually hid his strength so well. He actually had the means to crush a divine lord. How heartless! He clearly gave him a chance. Why did he court death? At this moment, Zhuge Liuyun's intestines turned green. Chapter 152. Cough cough. Dust filled the air as the ground crumbled. The entire hall was shrouded in a cloud of dust. However, a coughing sound came from the place where the seal landed. Soon after, a figure bathed in blood walked out unsteadily from within. At this moment, Fire Wolf's aura was already extremely weak. Even his qi and blood stopped churning. He looked at Ling Xiao in horror, and his face was filled with fear and despair. Invincible immortal? That's more than invincible immortal, he's a young king. No wonder the successor of the Ling clan didn't show any signs of fear from the start. Even without the two great demons by his side, he was afraid that with his trump cards, he might not be a match for him. It's still not working. Ling Xiao shook his head, his face filled with regret. Even with his God King Divine Soul, he still couldn't kill a deity overlord. It wasn't because he didn't have enough soul power, but because his cultivation was restricted by the heavens and earth. He couldn't fully activate the seal's power. Moreover, Huolang was a peak divine overlord, but he didn't have any decent treasures. Divine overlords from normal sects would definitely have some life-saving trump cards. Looks like I have to increase my cultivation as soon as possible. Also, it's best not to use this divine soul secret technique. After all, soul cultivators were almost extinct in Xingzhou. Once he showed his talent, who knows if the hypocrites in the sacred sect would label him as a demon. Even though I'm a demon, it's best to be safe in the early stages. If he stuck his head out, he would be beaten to a pulp. Ling Xiao sighed. If anyone else were to see this scene, they would definitely start cursing again. You're a Paong cultivator, you almost killed a peak divine overlord with one seal, and you're still not satisfied? Young master. Can I leave now? Fire Wolf swallowed hard. At this moment, almost all the bones in his body were broken. If he didn't use his bloodline power at the last moment, that seal would have been enough to kill him. F***CK. Why was I bragging? Hundreds of attacks? Huolang was about to cry. Leave? Senior, don't be anxious. This is just the beginning. Ling Zhao's original intention was to test what level his current combat strength had reached. This way, he would have more confidence in acting tough in the future. Otherwise, once he offended someone he shouldn't offend, he would definitely fall into a predicament no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeve. After all, I'm the villain. Unlike the Son of Destiny, as long as he acted tough, he would definitely succeed. Gulp, young master is mighty. Xiaohua is terrified. Young master, why not? However, before Huolang finished speaking, a pitch-black demonic blade suddenly appeared in Ling Zhao's hand. A terrifying demonic chant resounded. Streaks of cold and evil aura swept towards the crowd like a tidal wave. At this moment, even Di Ying and Mi Yong had a trace of fear in their eyes. That kind of suppression that seemed to come from their souls almost caused them to kneel on the ground. What a terrifying devil intent! Under Zhuge Liuyan's body, a puddle of water immediately flowed out. However, why had he never seen Ling Xiao use such a terrifying demonic saber before? Moreover, this devil intent seemed to be different from the devil technique that the myriad Dao demon sect cultivated. Gulp. Huolang's legs trembled slightly as his fur stood on end. At this moment, he could feel that the power of this demonic saber was probably 10,000 times more terrifying than the soul seal just now. Young master! Spare me! Huolang fell to his knees with a plop. At this moment, the dignity of a deity overlord and the dignity of an expert were obviously useless. Wasn't it good to be alive? Even if he couldn't break through to the Divine King realm, he could still live a long and carefree life. Why did he? It was all that damned devil sect's true disciples' fault. If he hadn't bewitched him, would he have lost his mind? Attacking the successor of the Ling people? This wasn't courting death, this was suicide. Senior, get ready. I'm going to wield my saber. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. It wasn't impossible to tame a deity overlord Huolang. However, for a wild demon like him, his talent was only so. It was already considered lucky for him to be able to cultivate to the deity overlord realm. Wanting to break through to the divine king realm was no different from a fool's dream. Ling Xiao didn't care about such a demon beast. What he wanted was someone who could accompany him as he grew and conquer the world with him. Xiao Tu's luck wasn't high, but there were still 1,000 of them. As long as they were given enough cultivation resources, they would be able to break through. In other words, this Huolang wasn't worth Ling Zhao's divine sense. Young master! Huolang's eyes flashed with a sinister glint when he heard that. You forced me to do this. Ling Xiao, you forced me to do this. Even if I die, I'll make sure you die with me. Boom! Monstrous flames suddenly surged out from his body. There seemed to be a faint smell of blood in the air. Did you detonate your demon core? Ling Xiao smiled playfully. Before Firewolf could make a move, Folded Shadow and Mi Yong appeared in front of him, one on the left and one on the right. What do you want? Mi Yong sneered. He was already envious of Ling Zhao's overlapped Shadow Spirit treasure pill. Now that he finally had a chance to show off, he naturally didn't want to miss it. Demonic chi surged as Mi Yong's figure grew to several dozen feet in size and grabbed Huolang in his hand. Although his cultivation was 2 levels lower than Huolang's, he was still a chaos ape. He was born in the ancient era of chaos, so his combat strength wasn't something an ordinary divine overlord could compare to, especially a demonic beast from a barren mountain. In his eyes, it was nothing more than a fart. The flames all over Fire Wolf's body were instantly suppressed. His entire body was like a doll being toyed with by the devil ape. Don't kill him! Shouted Ling Xiao. Mi Yong's eyes flickered with coldness, but the Fire Wolf had a grateful expression on its face. Thank you for sparing my life, young master. I will never forget your kindness. Hold him tight. I'll test my saber. Ling Xiao ignored Huolang's flattery. He held the demonic saber with both hands and swung it at Huolang's head. No! No! Mommy! The Fire Wolf let out 2 blood-curdling screams in a row. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, but the demonic saber didn't fall. Mi Yong, a little to the left. Yes, a little to the right. Step back. Yes, that's it. Ling Xiao nodded with satisfaction. You. Hurry! Hurry up and kill me! Hurry! Huolang cried. He was really crying. It was too scary. Bastard. Beast. Scum. Hurry up and give me a quick death. All right, since Senior has asked, I can only reluctantly fulfill Senior's wish. Ling Xiao grinned. Demonic light shone in his eyes, and the demonic saber in his hand released a sky demon light. He swung it at Huo Lang's head. Space trembled as demonic music resounded. Heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Chapter 153. Ah! Burp. The fire wolf's roar came to an abrupt halt. Wherever the demonic blade landed, the flesh began to rot and the bones began to shatter. Strands of bloodline power that could be seen with the naked eye surged through the demonic blade. In the end, they turned into demonic chi and poured into the primordial blade. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. He vaguely felt that the blade had undergone some inexplicable changes. As for what it was, he couldn't tell. Drinking blood to become stronger? It was quite fitting for a villain's murderous weapon. Slaughtering millions of people to forge a peerless divine blade. Ling Xiao was looking forward to it. The bloodline power of a mere divine marquis could cause such a change in the demonic blade. If he killed a few monster kings and monster emperors, Looking at the fire wolf's corpse, Zhuge Liuyun's face turned pale, and he fainted from fright. It was too terrifying. Ling Xiao wasn't the demonic sect's young master. He was a great demon. Ling Xiao was taken aback. Only then did he realize that Mi Yong was no longer in front of him. Pfft. Beside him, Xue Ying covered her mouth and chuckled. There was a rare gentleness on her beautiful face. Mi Yong, look at you. Could it be that you're afraid that the Lord will slaughter you as well? Ling Xiao saw that Mi Yong was kneeling on the ground behind the fire wolf's corpse. His face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear. Gulp. Ling Xiao's saber strike just now contained a devil intent that he was completely unable to resist. He even saw the sun and moon falling and the sea changing under that blade. Heavenly Taoist rhymes and vast demonic chi. Our Lord was indeed the successor of the sky demon. If he could become a supreme one day, no, as long as he could become an emperor, the entire Xingzhou would belong to the demons. No, at that time they wouldn't be called demons anymore. They would be rulers. Well done. Here are some fire spirit melons for you. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and tossed the few spirit melons in his Qianquan bag to Mi Yong. The latter narrowed his eyes, and a hint of joy appeared on his face. Master, this ant, Dai Shadow walked to the side of the unconscious Zhuge Liuyun, killing intent flowing in his eyes. Ling Xiao muttered to himself. Lightning flickered in his hand as he grabbed the ancient cauldron with the undying heart flame sealed in it. Although the cauldron recognized Lin Shi as its master, how could a Xianqing person's soul be compared to Ling Xiao's? So, the latter didn't spend too much effort to directly wipe out the divine sense within the cauldron and regain control of it. However, since this Zhuge Liuyun was a direct disciple of the 10,000 men's enemy and was also the eldest senior brother of the devil sect, his life tablet was probably in the hands of the sect master. If he died in the Sunset Divine Mountain, the sect master would definitely be suspicious of him. But so what if he was suspicious? As long as he pretended to be more convincing, even if his enemy suspected him, what could he do? Ling Xiao had promised him that he would not take the initiative to kill Zhuge Liuyun, but the spiritual fire did not. Thinking like that, Ling Xiao's face immediately revealed a cold smile. He walked to Zhuge Liuyun's side and bent down to embrace him. Eldest senior brother, wake up. Did you not eat? Why did you faint? And? In a daze, Zhuge Liuyun felt that his face was in pain. But when he opened his eyes and saw the gentle face that was close to him, he instantly sucked in a breath of cold air, rolled his eyes and fainted again. Senior brother. Quick, finish this bowl of spiritual fire before you sleep. Ling Xiao smiled helplessly. He placed the ancient cauldron next to Zhuge Liuyun's mouth, and gently poured some into it. Ah! A miserable shriek instantly resounded. Zhuge Liuyun's entire body jumped up until his head touched the dome of the ancient palace. Then, he fell back down. At that moment, he no longer had a human form. He even faintly emitted a whiff of meat fragrance. This spiritual fire is a bit fierce. Ling Xiao laughed bitterly. He kept Zhuge Liuyun's corpse and the ancient cauldron. He raised his head and looked at the sky-imprisoning cauldron that enveloped the entire palace. The ancient cauldron instantly let out a soft cry. Before Ling Xiao's sword finger landed, it actually shrank and landed on top of his head. This? Ling Xiao was startled. He felt a trace of gentleness coming from the cauldron. The corner of his mouth immediately raised into a playful smile. Wonderful. As long as you are strong enough, even a broken cauldron can become a bootlicker. Let's go. It's time to go out. Ling Xiao casually kept the divine cauldron into his cosmos sack. He did not have much use for these cauldrons and bells. After all, he was not refining pills. Furthermore, taking out a cauldron for a fight was not cool at all. However, in his mother's sect, there were a few beautiful junior sisters. They must like these divine cauldrons very much. Junior sisters and whatnot were the most innocent and cute. Mi Yong and layered shadows figures instantly disappeared on the spot. Ling Xiao lifted his leg and walked out of the main hall. This trip could be considered a success. Although Lin Shi escaped in the end, whether he was dead or alive did not make much of a difference to Ling Xiao. If he was dead, he could get the reward. If he was not dead, he could bring Ling Xiao to look for opportunities again. Boom! However, just as Ling Xiao appeared at the entrance of the ruins, a terrifying wave of energy suddenly came from the direction of the sunset peak. The show has begun? The corner of Ling Xiao's mouth raised slightly. In a flash, he appeared outside the ruins. At this moment, Qin Ling was standing in front of the crowd with an unwilling look on his face. In front of him, there were a few wretched, solemn-looking old men in white standing with their hands behind their back. They were faintly blocking off all his escape routes. Liang are you talking about this person? The divine overlord at the front shouted coldly. Ma Yang immediately gritted his teeth and pointed at Qin Ling. That's right. Elder Qiu, this is the person who killed senior brother Su and the other junior brothers. He snatched the opportunities that senior brother obtained. Snatched Su Yue's opportunities? Qin Ling's expression froze. His eyes instantly turned gloomy. Damn it. You bunch of hypocrites of the righteous path. Clearly, Su Yue was the one who killed my Qin clan's disciples first and snatched their opportunities. In the end, they were killed by him. Why did it become him snatching Su Yue's opportunities now? Speaking without thinking, reversing black and white. Hypocrite to the extreme. In the end, Qin Ling did not find the divine artifact on Su Yue's body. Moreover, he did not know why their corpses disappeared into thin air. However, his exhaustion was not fake. He must have experienced a fierce battle just now. A battle that was even fiercer than the battle with 9 women at night. This feeling was somewhat illusory. It did not feel real. However, he had personally experienced it. Bullshit. Clearly, Su Yue was the one who killed my Qin clan's disciples and snatched my clan's opportunities. You are slandering me. Qin Ling's expression turned cold. Although he could not defeat these cloudy millet immortal sect's elders, he could not let this affect the Qin clan's reputation. You are about to die and you still dare to quibble. Clearly, you were the one who killed senior brother Su and snatched the spiritual melon. Qin Ling, you first killed the other disciples of my sect. Then, you twisted senior brother Su's neck and snatched the spiritual melon. I saw it with my own eyes. Stop pretending. Killing intent surged in Ma Yang's eyes. He no longer had the cowardice from before. Twisted his neck? Snatched the spiritual melon? Looking at the hatred on Ma Yang's face, Qin Ling suddenly felt a little lost. Could it be that he had already killed Su Yue and the others? Did I do it? It seems like I did it. But why does it feel like something is wrong? Chapter 154. Nonsense. What a load of nonsense. Qinling frowned and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, anger appeared on his face. These damn righteous immortal sections. They didn't have any other abilities, but their acting was quite serious. They could even turn black into white. Even the dead were brought back to life by them. There were no immortals or demons in the cultivation world. Only after many people died did they differentiate between righteous and evil. Oh? Since this Qinling was so vicious and merciless, then how did you survive? Ling Xiao stood in the crowd and asked with a puzzled expression. Oh? That's right. You made me sound so vicious and merciless, then how did you survive? If I wanted to kill you, how could I let you go? Qinling was stunned. He turned to look at Ling Xiao and suddenly shouted angrily. What a good person! He didn't expect the person standing beside him to be the successor of the Ling people. The Ling people and the Qin clan had always been on bad terms. This Lord Ling Xiao had always been arrogant. However, his character was worthy of respect. At the very least, he was much better than these righteous immortal sect disciples. Ma Yang's face turned red. Even the surrounding immortal sect elders looked at him with puzzlement. I fainted from fright. Damn! You, a successor disciple of an immortal sect, actually fainted from fright when you saw your fellow sect members being killed. Embarrassing! Too embarrassing! The group of immortal sect elders' faces turned green. They looked at Ma Yang as if they were looking at a dead person. It's over. Ma Yang's legs trembled. Despair flashed across his eyes. Even if he returned to the sect, he would definitely be killed. In the eyes of these elders, the sect's reputation was much more important than a successor disciple like him. Damn that Ling Xiao. If you want to watch the show, then just watch. Why are you getting involved? Aren't the Ling people and the Qin clan mortal enemies? Why is he speaking up for Qinling now? At the peak of the setting sun mountain, a mocking expression appeared on the faces of the prodigies. This Ma Yang was really a talent. He fainted from fright. So that's how it is. Senior Marshal Brother Ma is really too easily frightened. Ling Xiao seemed to be deep in thought. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Qinling and said, But now that I think about it, it seems that young Master Qin had indeed roared crazily in the underground palace, saying that he wanted someone to hand over something. Right, I heard it too. It's Qinling. I heard him say that he was going to kill someone, but I didn't dare to go over and watch the show. Upon hearing Ling Xiao's words, many of the surrounding disciples nodded in agreement. Before this, they didn't dare to speak because they were worried that they would offend the Qin clan. However, now that the Lord Ling Xiao had spoken, these righteous people naturally had to speak up for justice and make the truth known to the public. Qinling, what else do you have to say? The elders of the celestial sects immediately shouted angrily. If they weren't in the Ling people's territory, they wouldn't need to waste time talking to this brat of the Qin clan. They would just capture him and bring him back to their sections. Naturally, before things were clear, they truly didn't dare to kill the people of the Qin clan. But now, since that bastard Ma Yang was so humiliated, there was no need for him to live anymore. When they returned, they would use their divine sense to search the coffin and the truth would be revealed. Sometimes, when one's own people lost their value, they wouldn't even have to worry about killing their enemies. It's not like that. It's not like what you said. It's Su Yuwei who killed my Qin clan's disciple first. Then, he stole my Qin clan's fortune. That's why I killed him. The grief and anger on Qinling's face didn't seem to be fake. At this moment, he was looking at Ling Xiao expectantly. It was as if he was the only one explaining this to. Actually, Qinling's actions weren't bad. After all, this was the Ling people. The people of the Cloudy Millet Immortal sect naturally had their concerns. Moreover, Lord Ling Shao was a righteous person. As long as they explained it to him, even if the two clans were enemies, he would most likely save their lives. Oh? So that's the case. As expected, when Ling Shao heard this, he nodded his head with a serious expression. There seemed to be some hesitation between his brows. Lord Ling Shao, you must believe me. These people from the immortal sects are full of nonsense. You must uphold justice for me. Qinling seemed to have forgotten how much he hated Ling Shao and how he swore to kill him in the ruins. Ling Zhao's face looked like he was in a difficult position. In the end, he sighed softly. Humph, you really admitted that you killed senior brother Su. Ling Shao. Young master, don't listen to his nonsense. I have always been with senior brother Su. We have never seen any of the Qin clan's disciples. Ma Yang gritted his teeth. Even if he had to die, he would drag Qinling down with him. Otherwise, wouldn't his death be too unjust? Bullshit. Humph. Qinling, if you have anything to say, follow us back to the Cloudy Millet Immortal Sect first. The group of Immortal Sect elders coldly snorted. Since you admitted it, this matter would be much easier to settle. No. Lord Ling Shao, Qinling's face turned pale. Especially in front of several divine overlords, he had no room to resist. But this place was thousands of miles away from the Qin clan. If the experts in the clan knew what had happened, he would be played to death by the immortal sects. No. I can't go back to the Cloudy Millet Immortal Sect with them. Little bastard, no one can save you today. Come here. A Cloudy Millet Immortal Sect expert sneered. He suddenly waved his hand and a clear light palm print condensed in an instant. It grabbed towards Qinling horizontally. Really? Ling Shao shook his head and smiled. He stepped out lightly and directly blocked in front of Qinling. Around him, a bolt of lightning rushed to the sky and tore the sky apart. Young master! Bastard! In the forest far away, Ling Ping, the lord of the Sunset City, and a beautiful woman in white were stunned. They instantly rushed towards Ling Shao. Lord Ling Shao! At this time, Qinling was moved to tears. Damn it, the light of righteousness! Lord Ling Shao! I wronged you before. As long as I don't die this time, I will definitely go back to the clan and persuade the patriarch to make friends with the Ling people. What a good man! However, no matter how fast Ling Ping and Yan Qingyun were, how could they be faster than the attack of the Immortal Sect's elder? How dare an immortal general be so arrogant in front of me? Ling Shao smiled disdainfully. At this time, it was not the divine overlord who attacked, but a third-grade immortal general. Although Ling Zhao's current realm was only at the middle stage of Paong, but the lightning in the sky suddenly gathered and directly turned into the shape of a thunder sun. It hit the cyan light palm print fiercely. At the same time, Ling Zhao's aura was at the middle stage of Paong. The middle stage of Paong. The principle of thunder. Damn it. Invincible immortal. A 17-year-old genius with the principle of thunder. Who in the Xingzhou can compete with Lord Ling Shao? The surrounding disciples suddenly opened their mouths wide and exclaimed in shock. Many of them had guessed that Ling Shao must have entered the realm of Paong since he comprehended the principle of thunder. But at this time, they still felt extremely shocked when they saw it with their own eyes. The elegant young master stood aloof from the world. Especially at this time, Ling Shao ignored the hatred between the Ling people and the Qin clan and helped them. His figure was even more magnificent and bright. The young master of the Devil's Doctrine had a kind heart. Damn it! In the future, if anyone says that young master is evil and vicious, I will be the first to kill him. Chapter 155. Boom! The lightning sun tore through the void and collided with the blue seal. In an instant, the clouds above Sunset Mountain shattered and space collapsed. Spiritual energy fluctuations that could be seen with the naked eye rippled outwards, causing many of the surrounding disciples to fall to the ground. At this time, Ling Xiao was also sent flying. There seemed to be some blood at the corner of his mouth. However, there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Lord Ling Xiao! Ling Xiao! A beautiful figure in white flashed and appeared in mid-air instantly. Then, she caught the figure that was flying backward in her arms. At this time, Nian Qingyun's pretty face was a little confused. She didn't know why she panicked when she saw him injured. She didn't know why she had to appear and catch him. All in all, it was very messy. No, I just don't want him to die in the hands of others. He can only die in my hands. Yes, that's it. Nian Qingyun lowered her head and looked at the handsome face that was slightly pale. A trace of coldness flashed in her beautiful eyes. Are you stupid? That's a divine general expert. Do you really think you're invincible? I was so scared. Ling Xiao's tone was terrified, but there was a trace of evil at the corner of his mouth. He rubbed his face hard into Nian Qingyun's arms. I feel a little hungry again. Calculating the time, it has been 6 hours since he last had sex with Nian Qingyun. I just don't want anyone to die unjustly. Although I'm a demonic cultivator, I firmly believe that there is light and love in this world. Clap, clap, clap. Applause thundered. At this time, the entire Sunset Mountain peak was filled with cheers. All the sect disciples looked at the weak and pale figure with a trace of awe in their eyes. It turned out that this was the real Lord Ling Xiao. Those rumors in the past were spread by people who were jealous of the young master's reputation. I'm so ashamed. I actually thought that Lord Ling Xiao was arrogant, domineering, and cruel. Gradually, people began to kneel on the ground and covered their faces to cry. The cries were sorrowful and heartbreaking. Lord Ling Xiao. Qinling's face had long since become lifeless, and 2 streams of tears slowly flowed down. He hated that he wasn't a woman. He hated that he was born in the Qin clan and was born to be the enemy of the young master. The scene of Ling Xiao standing in front of him was like a carving knife, deeply carving into his heart. Lord Ling Xiao, if there is a next life, I will definitely become one of your people. It's over. At this time, the immortal General Elder's face suddenly turned pale. But before he could react, Ling Ping's figure had flashed over. The golden light in Ling Ping's hand rushed into the sky and hit the immortal General Elder's chest fiercely. Puchi! With Ling Ping's strength, it was easy for Ling Ping to kill him. But at this time, Ling Ping just flew out and broke 9 towering ancient trees before Ling Ping fell to the ground. The group of immortal sect elders had gloomy complexions, but they remained strangely silent. Now the Yunshu immortal sect had completely offended the Qin clan. If they offended the Ling people, they were afraid that, different from the Qin clan, the Ling people now had an inseparable relationship with the Universal Demon Sect, the Ethereal Taoist Palace, and the Danyuan Holy Land. Just now, although Ling Xiao forcibly stood out, if he was really killed by the immortal General Elder of the Yunshu immortal sect, things would become quite troublesome. Although the Yunshu immortal sect was a supreme orthodoxy, it didn't dare to fight with the 4 supreme orthodoxies at the same time. The immortal General Elder was hit by Ling Ping, and he deserved it. Ahem, City Lord Ling, stop. Ling Xiao sighed and stretched out his hand to wipe the blood at the corner of his mouth. Although he wanted to continue, he finally stood up from Nian Qingyun's arms. Today's matter is complicated and bizarre. No one can tell what the truth is. This is the territory of the Ling people. If you take people away, won't our Ling people become a joke? Of course, big words should be left to the big shot. Only when people were popular could they start to talk about ideas. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up when he saw the reverence in everyone's eyes as they looked at him. He sighed and looked up at Qinling. Brother Qin, don't worry. If you are wronged, I think the Qin clan will seek justice for you. And, the people of the Yunshu immortal sect, if you want to speak, at least the experts of the Qin clan will bear witness. So, you'd better go back. The expressions of the elders of the Yunshu immortal sect changed, but they didn't know how to refute Ling Xiao. Although Qin Ling admitted to killing Su Yuwei, he said that Su Yuwei killed the disciples of the Qin clan first and robbed their opportunities. It was hard to tell who was the one lying between him and Ma Liang. Lord Ling Xiao. Thank you. Qin Ling took a deep breath and bowed respectfully to Ling Xiao. Ridiculous. He was still thinking about Ling Xiao's fiancée. If it wasn't for Ling Xiao, he would have been killed by the Yunshu immortal sect. This matter couldn't be let go. Otherwise, wouldn't the Qin clan's reputation plummet? Ha ha, there is justice in the world. I only did what I was supposed to do. Ling Xiao smiled calmly and accepted the bow. In the eyes of the crowd, this was the image of a gentle, humble, and peerless young master. Good. Since Lord Ling Xiao insists on saying this, Qin Ling, my Yunshu immortal sect will definitely seek justice from the Qin clan tomorrow. The immortal sect elders looked at each other, but in the end they did not argue. At this moment, they could already feel that at the foot of the mountain, terrifying auras were rushing towards the peak. Clearly, the experts of the Ling people had arrived. Ling Xiao's injuries today were all caused by the Yunshu immortal sect. If they didn't leave now, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences if this bastard tried to scam them. Let's go! Wait a minute. However, just as the group of immortal sect elders were about to leave, Ling Xiao's voice suddenly rang out. Elders, I was inexplicably hit by your people. Don't tell me you want to leave like this. Ling Xiao's eyes were playful and he pretended to cough twice. Yes. That's too irresponsible. What's so great about the supreme orthodoxy? You want to leave after hitting someone? Is there any law in the world? Whoosh. Suddenly, there was a sound of wind breaking. In the air, figures in black robes tore through the air and stood above Ling Xiao. Greetings, young master. Just now, Ling Ping had secretly sent a message to summon all the experts in the Sunset City. Now, as long as the young master agreed, no one from the Yunshu immortal sect could leave today. Young master suddenly appeared just now. Our elders couldn't stop in time, so, the leader of the Yunshu immortal marquis looked serious and forced a smile on his face. Oh? Elder, do you mean that you want to go back on your words? Ling Xiao coughed twice, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth again. Young master! In the sky, the experts of the Ling people looked murderous. Around them, a strong force was released, which scared Elder Yunshu so much that his face turned pale. No, I apologize to you on behalf of junior brother Ian. Nonsense, didn't it mean that he could do it? That immortal general elder hadn't gotten up yet. Apologize? If an apology is useful, is there a need to pay with one's life in this world? Ling Xiao sneered and looked up at the elders. I don't have any other requests. Everyone, give me a divine artifact and I'll let it go. You! The elders' faces changed, and their eyes were full of hatred. Damn it, it's all Elder Yin's fault. He could have provoked anyone, but he provoked this devil. Chapter 156. Elders, do you think that my life is worth less than a few divine artifacts? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His eyes were filled with killing intent. What a joke. He didn't believe that these elders didn't have any divine artifacts. Of course, divine artifacts weren't of much use to him. But since he wanted to form a team, they would become his trump card. They wouldn't cry until they saw the coffin. No, that's not what I meant. But, even though they knew that Ling Xiao's injury was most likely an act. But Ling Xiao had the strength to fight against a divine general? Although the divine general elder had only casually attacked, Ling Xiao was only in the Paong realm. How did he withstand the divine general's pressure? Was it because of his white robe? That's right. How could the Ling people not give their successor some life-saving trump cards? The white robe contained starlight. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Alright, since you elders are unwilling, then. City Lord Ling. Young master, please wait. We will give it to you. The divine overlord elder gritted his teeth. They were indeed in the wrong. Ling people couldn't be offended anymore. After today's incident, the cloudy immortal sect would definitely become enemies with the Qin clan. If they offended the Ling people, it's better to be happy earlier. Why do you have to make everyone unhappy? A smile appeared on Ling Zhao's face, and even the paleness on his face disappeared. The group of immortal sect elders gloomily took out several divine artifacts from their Qianquan bags and handed them to Ling Xiao. Tsk. Low-grade divine artifacts? Aren't you guys too stingy? Ling Xiao shook his head and kept the divine artifacts in his Qianquan bag. The elders' eyes were filled with hatred, but they didn't dare to say anything and turned to leave. However, right at this moment, Elder Yun Shu, who had been smashed to the ground, slowly woke up. There was a trace of shame on his face. Ling people, you've gone too far. Today, the cloudy immortal sect will fight to the death with you. Gulp. The deity overlord elder's expression turned sluggish, while Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. Wonderful. He must have lost his mind from the collision just now, right? How dare he threaten the descendant of the Ling people in their territory? At this moment, the divine general elder flashed over with a hint of doubt in his grief and indignation. Why are all the elders looking at me with such sinister gazes? Are you blaming me for embarrassing the cloudy millet immortal sect? Wait, who are those black-robed old men behind Ling Xiao? Their auras seem to be a little awesome. Gulp. Oh? Elder, how should I address you? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, a faint smile on his face. What a good person! This gift was not enough, and someone even suggested to make up for it. I am an elder of the Cloudy Dew Immortal Sect, Ao. The Divine General Elder swallowed hard. He didn't need anyone to tell him that his words and actions had caused trouble. Fight to the death? No matter how he looked at it, there were more experts of the Ling people here than the Cloudy Dew Immortal Sect. Elder Yin, did you just say that you would fight to the death with the Ling people? Ling Xiao nodded with a smile, and the next moment, the demonic light in his eyes suddenly became brighter. An oppressive evil pressure surged out, practically enveloping the entire Sunset Divine Mountain. The invincible immortal aura and peerless temperament were all visible at a glance. Behind him, the eyes of the experts of the Ling people also surged with monstrous battle intent, and divine light shot up into the sky from their bodies. At this moment, the clouds at the top of the Sunset Peak were tumbling, and the Taoist sound was resounding. It seemed that a great battle was about to break out. Boom! However, before Ling Xiao and the others could make a move, deity overlord Yun Shu suddenly made a move and sent Ao flying with a palm strike. Blood spilled, and the smell of blood filled the air. This palm strike was even more powerful and terrifying than Ling Ping's previous one. Boom! Elder Yin's figure only fell from the sky after he knocked down the 9 towering ancient trees. But this time, he didn't even struggle and fainted directly. Haha, Lord Ling Xiao, calm down. Elder Yin is so arrogant. He really deserves to die. Deserves to die? Ling people's dignity can't be offended by a word of deserves to die? Since the Cloudy Immortal Sect wants to fight, I'll go back to the sect today and report to my father. We'll officially start a war with the Cloudy Immortal Sect. Ling Xiao snorted, and the deity overlord Yun Shu narrowed his eyes. In the end, before Ling Xiao could speak again, he took out a divine artifact from his interspatial bag and handed it to him. Young master, how can you be angry with a villain like Ao? I got this primeval chaos golden cudgel from an ancient site. I hope you can accept it. Oh? A divine artifact? From antiquity times? A trace of greed flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes. He took the black cudgel and nodded reluctantly. Tell Ao that he can choose not to eat, but he can't speak nonsense. The road ahead is endless. I advise you to be a man. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, young master. We'll take our leave first. In my opinion, the most inhumane people here are you and the group of idiots who are blindly cheering you on. The group of immortal sect elders gritted their teeth, but they didn't dare to hesitate at all. They turned around and grabbed the unconscious Yin Jingao before fleeing towards the horizon. Lord Ling Xiao. Qin Ling gritted his teeth and walked in front of Ling Xiao. He silently took out a divine artifact from his bosom and handed it to Ling Xiao. Brother Qin, what are you doing? Ling Xiao's face darkened, and there was anger in his voice. Young master spoke up for me today and helped me out. I can't repay your kindness. This wind-fire golden cudgel is the best divine artifact I have besides the heartless sword. I'll give it to you. There was no trace of embarrassment on Qin Ling's face. He was really grateful to Ling Xiao from the bottom of his heart. In particular, the blood stain on Ling Xiao's emperor's starry robe made him feel shocked and sorrowful. Apart from the 3 layers of snow, who else in the world was worthy of wearing white? Brother Qin, do you think I'm here for your divine artifact? Ling Xiao coldly snorted. Qin Ling shook his head with a bitter smile. Young master, you've misunderstood. This is just a small token of my appreciation. I hope you don't dislike it. Young master loves money, but he's got it in the right way. It turned out that the demonic sect's young master was the most upright heaven's pride in the eastern border of the Xingzhou continent. Although these words were a little awkward, they were Qin Ling's true thoughts. This, young master, don't decline. I have to go back to report what happened today. See you later. Qin Ling directly threw the golden cudgel in front of Ling Xiao as if it was a hot potato. Then he took a deep look at Ling Xiao and turned to leave. Lord Ling Xiao, no fate in this life. Let's meet again in the next life. This look? Did Qin Ling fall in love with him? Beat. Congratulations to the host for gaining the favor of young Master Qin of the Qin clan. Luck points increase by 50 points. Villain points increase by 500 points. EW. F***CK. Favor. My damn charm doesn't distinguish between men and women? Go, follow him and ensure that young Master Qin Ling returns to the Qin clan safely. Ling Xiao grinned. The original doubts in Ling Ping's eyes suddenly disappeared. Could it be that young master, wonderful? Originally, he was wondering why Lord Ling Xiao would stand up for a person of the Qin clan. Unexpectedly, young master was really meticulous and resourceful. Yes. Looking at the silhouettes that disappeared in an instant, the playful smile on Ling Xiao's face deepened. Some people were more useful alive than dead. Young master is so righteous. You even want to escort Qin Ling back to the clan. Qin Ling seemed to provoke young master before. I didn't expect young master to be so broad-minded. That's right. If anyone speaks ill of Lord Ling Xiao in the future, I'll chop him up first. Chapter 157. Ouch, my head is a little dizzy. Ling Xiao's body trembled and fell towards Nian Qingyun. Nian Qingyun had been fooled once. How could she be fooled a second time? Her figure immediately flashed and hid to the side. Ling Xiao's expression froze. In the end, he could only shake his head and said with a puzzled expression, It seems to be better. Ling Xiao, since we have come out of the ruins, shouldn't we settle our matter? Nian Qingyun's face darkened, and a cold aura instantly circulated around her. Wife, aren't you too impatient? I have just been injured by a divine general expert, and you are in a hurry to fight with me. Even if you win, isn't it an unfair victory? Ling Xiao sighed, his expression somewhat desolate. Fine, since you're so anxious to kill me, then make your move. I'm willing to die in your hands. Nian Qingyun's pretty face was stunned, but she did not really attack Ling Xiao in the end. What he said was correct. The seal from earlier had truly landed on his body. Although Ling Xiao's injuries were not so serious, the palm of a divine general expert would not be so easily resolved. It was not fair to win against him now. Your injuries are just superficial. With your realm, you can recover in half a day. I will wait for you. Nian Qingyun stood aside and did not have the slightest intention to leave. Haha, okay. Wife, wait for me for a moment. Ling Xiao smiled gently and turned to Fu Yunyao and the others. Senior Sister Fu. Young Lord. Everyone immediately bowed and greeted. I will return to the sect tomorrow, but there is something I need you to do for me. Ling Xiao deliberately lowered his voice and whispered a few words in Fu Yunyao's ear. When Nian Qingyun saw the intimate appearance of the two, her face became colder. Fire Cloud Sect? Okay, young lord, don't worry. I will go now. Fu Yunyao's pretty face was stunned. She immediately nodded, but there was a hint of resentment in her beautiful eyes. Wife, shall we go? Ling Xiao turned around and grinned at Nian Qingyun. Before she could resist, he grabbed her hand and led her toward Sunset City. Now that this matter was over, it was time for him to make a trip back to the sect. After all, the matter of Zhuge Liuyun's death had to be reported to the sect master. As for Nian Qingyun, she would most likely be training in the eastern border of the Xingzhou continent. With the Dragon Phoenix Jade Key that Ling Tianlin gave him, Ling Xiao was not afraid that he would not be able to find her. The next step was to prepare for the Thousand Sect martial meeting. As the grandest event in the eastern frontier, who knew how many children of heaven would appear in the martial competition? Ling Zhao's smile was very wretched. Nian Qingyun's pretty face immediately revealed a touch of disgust. Let go of me. Wife, listen to my explanation. Actually, that Luo knew that day is my bodyguard, eh? Wife, how could you turn hostile just like that? My injuries haven't healed yet, ouch, don't hit my face, don't hit my face. Eastern border region, in a small rundown city. Lin Shi's figure appeared in front of a house covered in dust. This was the former Lin family. However, following the extermination of the Lin clan, this house became a notorious haunted house. To be safe, Lin Shi had not returned for 7 years. However, the moment Lin Shi pushed open the door and walked into the main hall, his eyes suddenly narrowed. At this moment, the originally messy old house was actually tidied up neatly. Although the tables and chairs were also covered in dust, it was obvious that someone had been here before. Lin Shi's body began to tremble uncontrollably. In his mind, scenes from when he was young appeared one by one. At that time, Ling Er's body was very weak and cold. Every time they were at home, she would nestle in Lin Shi's arms like a quiet kitten. In the blink of an eye, 7 years had passed. Ling you should have grown into a slender and elegant young lady by now. Could it be you? Actually, Lin Shi understood that when his father turned around to stop the pursuer, giving him and his sister a chance to escape, he was most likely dead. Now that Lin Shi thought about it, although the powerful cultivator's realm was not high and was only in the Paong realm, he also had Taoist principles and seemed to be unparalleled swordsmanship. Ling people, Ling Xiao, just you wait. As long as I enter the mystery land of Tian Yuan and obtain that fortune, I will exterminate your entire family. Lin Shi snorted coldly and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. As the son of destiny, he loved to make vows. Needless to say, the vows he made could usually be fulfilled. Why? Of course, it was because he worked hard. However, in the next moment, Lin Shi's face became gloomy again. Just now, he had left in a hurry and did not have time to retrieve the green demonic ancient cauldron. That damned Ling Xiao took advantage of it. However, when he thought of the terrifying lightning intent on Ling Zhao's body, Lin Shi still felt a lingering fear. Cough, cough. Elder Ling, wake up. Lin Shi took a deep breath and sent a wisp of divine consciousness into the ring. How could a loser rise to prominence? It was definitely not because he was gifted or had a terrifying background. It was because he had a good grandfather. Without his grandfather, he was nothing. Shi'er, where are we? Your realm. You have broken through. Elder Ling's voice was filled with excitement. However, in Lin Shi's eyes, there was a flash of mockery. You still want to pretend? Fine, I will see how long you can pretend. Fortunately, in the ancient underground palace, he had used some means to make Elder Ling fall into a coma. Otherwise, if they joined forces, Lin Shi would not be able to escape this time. The old man behind you, haha, he is so affectionate. Elder Ling. I have been schemed against, Lin Shi sighed, and there was a hint of loneliness in his voice. At this moment, his emotions were not fake. Ling Zhao's appearance had caused his smooth journey to suddenly become unrestrained. Although in the past, Lin Shi would encounter many difficulties, this time, it was even more dangerous. Especially now, Elder Ling seemed to have secretly joined forces with Ling Xiao. This was a great challenge for Lin Shi. However, the 7 years of life and death experience had long since forged his tenacious and flawless Dao heart. He believed that in the end, he would definitely be able to step on Ling Zhao's corpse and walk to the peak of the immortal path. Have you been schemed against? Elder Ling's voice was weak. Moreover, he felt as if his entire body was powerless. He couldn't even use his divine consciousness. Ling Xiao took away the undying heart flame and the green devil ancient cauldron. Lin Shi gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. What? Elder Ling exclaimed. In the end, he couldn't help but sigh. Ling people's successor is indeed a person of great fortune. In this chaotic world, evildoers are everywhere. Shi-er, you have to be more careful in the future. F***ck. Are you praising Ling Xiao? As expected, old thing, you have a change of heart. However, if Ling Xiao heard these words, he would probably laugh out loud again. He had a chicken's luck. He was just a reaper of luck. Chapter 158. Yes. Elder Ling. Lin Shi secretly gritted his teeth, but his tone became even more humble. If he wanted to truly have the strength to contend against Ling Xiao, he had to obtain the inheritance of the ancient emperor in the Tianyuan ancient realm. Therefore, he could not fall out with Elder Ling now. Sigh, you don't have to be discouraged. Only the experts who have been tempered in the era of great battles will become the strongest in the universe. Once you become a sage, you will be able to suppress all eternity. This is the path you have to walk. Previously, you walked it too easily. Elder Ling was optimistic, but there was a trace of bitterness in his voice. Elder Ling, the inheritance in the secret realm. Now that I have stepped into the Paong realm, I think that as long as I integrate the immemorial Emperor Flame, I will be able to comprehend the law of fire. Can you bring me there now? Lin Shi asked expectantly. But Elder Ling fell into silence. Shi-er, if you were at your peak, the world would be your grandson. Alright, I know. Don't babble any more. Sigh, moreover, the green demon is now in Ling Zhao's hands. Now, you can only choose to integrate the spiritual fire in the secret realm. You can't bring it out, but those ancient races. Sigh, if you go in now, you will definitely die. In that case, I can only wait until after the myriad sect martial meeting, when the geniuses of the eastern border enter the secret realm. Lin Shi nodded, and a trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. Fishing in troubled waters? If the waters were not muddy, how could he fish? Elder Ling, I have refined the elixir for you to recover your divine soul. Eat it quickly. Yes, I feel that something is not right recently. Shi-er, perhaps my remnant soul will not exist for long. If I can't find a treasure to nourish my divine soul, I'm afraid. Elder Ling laughed bitterly. He did not say that the time was up. It was just that Lin Shi had changed a medicinal ingredient in the elixir that he refined. With Elder Ling's attainments in alchemy, he would definitely be able to find some clues under normal circumstances. He could only blame himself for trusting Lin Shi too much. Even though he knew that this young man had selfish intentions towards him, he still did not believe that the latter would frame him. Therefore, a flawless Tao heart, and a love stronger than gold, Wasn't that the character of a protagonist? If it were you, wouldn't you be annoyed if someone beside you told you that he had 37 stars of the King Realm but was killed every time in the diamond game? When it came to bragging, there was a limit to it. It was just for fun. If you boast too much, your relationship will easily collapse. It was true. Don't worry, Elderling. I'll stabilize my cultivation and immediately help you find soul spirit items. Elderling, come, finish this pill first. Lin Shi's solemn vow caused the unhappiness in Elderling's heart to dissipate. How could young people not make mistakes? In the past 7 years, Lin Shi had experienced many dangers, but generally speaking, it was not difficult. It was normal for him to be impetuous, but now that he had met Ling Xiao, he had more or less awakened and matured a lot. That Ling Xiao was the best stepping stone for him to break through to the next level. Misfortune was a blessing in disguise. As long as Lin Shi could truly realize his mistakes, it would be a blessing for his growth, even though it was a trial for him now. Shi'er, work hard. I believe you will stand at the peak of this world one day. Elder Ling raised his head and swallowed the pill. His body instantly shone brightly. But why did the sleepiness in his mind become more obvious? Sigh, it seems like my time is up. 10,000 swords, sacred ground. Ling Tian looked calmly at the 10,000 swords sacred master, who was sitting in the main hall. At this moment, the elders of the sacred ground were divided into two sides, looking at the white-clothed youth in front of them suspiciously or seriously. Ling People's second young master, born without a core C. His identity was illustrious, but he was a real piece of trash. The sacred master brought him back and planned to take him as a disciple? If this matter spread out, wouldn't the direct disciples of the 10,000 swords sacred ground go crazy? Just because of his identity, the sacred master made an exception and took him as a direct disciple. To the other disciples, it was unfair. Didn't they hear? The Sky Sword Celestial Master next door took in a new female disciple. She was a prodigy who was born with the Tao laws. Although her cultivation was low, she had a core C and could cultivate. What the hell was this? Sacred Master, I think we should let Ling Tian join the outer sect first before making any plans. A dignified old man in the lead suddenly spoke. As he opened his eyes, an unparalleled sharpness filled the air. The 10,000 swords sacred ground's first elder, Jiannan, was a god emperor. In the Shengzhou eastern border, he was one of the top swordsmen in the sword Dao. Hearing this, the 10,000 swords sacred master smiled bitterly. Therefore, it could be said that in any sect, the sect master or whatever was the most talented person. But the most prestigious person in the sect was still the first elder. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sit in this position. First elder, I understand your concerns. But although Tian doesn't have a core C, he has a sword heart. I heard from Emperor Ling that he loves swords as much as his life. Such a young man is most suitable to cultivate the sword Dao and inherit the will of our sacred ground. The 10,000 swords sacred master looked calmly at Ling Tian. Tian, if you want to convince the others, you still need to work hard. I'll take you as a disciple in name first. 3 days later, you can go to the 10,000 Swords Path of Immortality in the 10,000 Swords Holy Land. See if you can find your own destiny on the Sword Mountain. Before the elders could say anything, the 10,000 Swords Sacred Master spoke in a serious tone. 10,000 Swords Path and Immortal? Ling Tian's eyes narrowed as he clenched his fist. Although he couldn't kill Ling Xiao, he had at least left the Ling people. As long as he could gain a foothold in the 10,000 Swords Sacred Master, he would be a great help in the future. With his sword vein divine physique, even if he couldn't cultivate spiritual energy, how many sword cultivators in the same generation could be his match? That's right. Our 10,000 Swords Sacred Master has been passed down for thousands of years and has given birth to countless experts in the sword Dao. After they died, they placed their divine swords on the 10,000 swords path and immortal. If you're lucky enough to gain the favor of one of these swords, you'll be able to find your own opportunity. There are thousands of steps on the path, and at the end is the inherited Tao artifact left behind by our founding ancestor. The 10,000 swords sacred master nodded. He quite liked Ling Tian's temperament. Moreover, it was rumored that the second young master of the Ling people had always been at odds with the successor of the Ling people, Ling Xiao. Therefore, it would be very difficult for him to return to the clan in the future. If he was properly nurtured, he might become a great trump card for the 10,000 swords sacred master to keep the other supreme orthodoxies in check. After all, even if he was born a good-for-nothing and wasn't valued by the Ling people, his father was still the most powerful emperor in the eastern border of the Xingzhou continent. Yes, this disciple will do his best to reach the peak of the path of immortality. Ling Tian bowed, and a strange sword intent shot up into the sky from his body. The elders of the 10,000 swords sacred master were shocked. This wave of energy? This lad? I'm afraid he's quite extraordinary. Seeing everyone's reaction, Ling Tian revealed a smile on his face. Haha, elders, in 3 days, I, Ling Tian, will make the entire 10,000 swords sacred master cheer for me. The 10,000 swords path? What sword could resist the sword mandate summon? Chapter 159. Good. A swordsman should be proud. The sacred lord of 10,000 swords smiled and turned to look at the yellow-clad girl standing in front of the hall. Sooner bring Ling Tian to rest. The yellow-clad girl nodded slightly and turned to walk out of the hall. Senior sister. Ling Tian followed the girl out of the hall and bowed to the handsome Saint Lan disciple with a gentle expression. The girl in front of him was extremely beautiful. She was dressed in a light yellow long dress, had fluffy hair, and exquisite facial features. However, there was no arrogance on her face. Instead, there was a friendly smile on her face. How should I address you, senior sister? Ling Tian had been humiliated by the Ling people. He had never seen such a gentle girl before. He had a good impression of her. Moreover, with his divine body's perception, he actually felt a slight fluctuation of doctrine law from the young lady's body. She was a monster. This girl was definitely not ordinary. My name is Yi Sun-er. You can call me senior sister Sun-er. Junior brother Ling Tian, I'll bring you around the 10,000 swords Saint Lan first. Yi Sun-er smiled sweetly. She stood in place and waited for Ling Tian to catch up before she walked toward the mountain peak in the distance. She had also sensed the fierceness on the young man earlier. Ling Tian did not have a Dan Si and was a good-for-nothing. However, Yi Sun-er did not see a trace of dejection on him. Instead, he seemed to have the ambition to compete with heaven and earth. Such a young man was much more interesting than the senior brothers in the Saint Land, who kept talking about the sword being the only thing that mattered. Look, who's that beside junior sister Sun-er? I don't know. He looks unfamiliar. He doesn't seem to have any spiritual energy fluctuation on him. A good-for-nothing? I remember now. The sacred lord brought back the Ling people's second young master, Ling Tian, and said that he wants to take him as his disciple. What? Is that true? TSK, who asked him to have a good father. I heard that the second young master has always been at odds with the Ling people's successor. Isn't the sacred lord? Shoo, don't talk nonsense. However, junior sister Sun-er seems to be quite enthusiastic about that pretty boy. Isn't he just a little handsome? So what if he's handsome? I'm sorry, it seems that being handsome is really something. The disciples of the 10,000 swords holy ground stood around the main hall and looked at Ling Tian and Yi Sun-er, who were talking and laughing with jealousy in their eyes. Yi Sun-er's identity was special. She was the true disciple of the sacred leader and the granddaughter of the first elder. In the 10,000 Swords sacred ground, she was the center of attention. Moreover, despite her young age, she was terrifyingly talented. She had already entered the Paong Plain and comprehended the Great Path. He was hailed as the strongest prodigy of the 10,000 Sword Taoist sect in the past 500 years. However, Yi Sun-er's talent was not bad, but it was not in the way of the sword. Although she yearned for the peak of the sword Tao, she could not help it. Look, its eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother is here. At the end of the distant square, a gray-clothed figure suddenly floated down. He had a handsome appearance and natural aura, and his sword insight shook the sky, causing him to seem like a gust of wind as he moved. This is going to be interesting. Senior brother, you has always been interested in junior sister, Sun. I'm afraid Ling Tian is going to be in trouble. Hey, he's still the young master of Ling people. No matter how displeased eldest senior brother is, he wouldn't dare to beat him to death. A hint of playfulness flashed in the eyes of many disciples. The eldest senior brother of the 10,000 Swords holy ground, Yu Yuntian, was a true disciple of the sect master. It was hard to say whether he was stable or not, but his cultivation was quite terrifying. Although he had not comprehended the Great Path and become a monster, he had cultivated for a long time and was now a powerhouse in the middle stage of the Paong Plain. Moreover, as a true disciple of the sect master, Yu Yuntian was always together with Yi Sun. Although the two of them had never admitted to having an affair, whenever senior brother Yu was asked about it, he had never refuted it. He had always said, "Don't talk nonsense, we disciples of the sword sect should focus on the sword Tao. If you say there's no relationship, then there's no relationship. Can't you just say it directly? The more you try to beat around the bush, the more people will think that you're trying to cover it up." Therefore, all the disciples of the 10,000 Swords holy ground now felt that senior brother Yu and junior sister Yi were together. At this moment, Yu Yuntian looked at Yi Suner and Ling Tian with a gentle smile on his face. However, there seemed to be a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. Junior sister Suner, this is, Yu Yuntian looked Ling Tian up and down, and there seemed to be some curiosity in his eyes. In fact, he had long known Ling Tian's identity, but he did not expect him to chat with Yi Sun-er so quickly. As expected, none of the young masters of the Ling people were good people. It was said that the successor of the Ling people, Ling Xiao, dared to flirt with the goddess of the Tao Palace in public. One could imagine what kind of person Ling Tian was. He liked Yi Sun-er, and he was also concerned about her identity and background. However, from the beginning to the end, this little junior sister did not seem to have much interest in him, and she only respected him. Ling Tian's identity gave him a lot of pressure. Fortunately, it was said that he was a good-for-nothing. Haha, a good-for-nothing. As the eldest senior brother, how could he not take good care of him? In this world, if one was not a righteous person, he would definitely have a sinister heart. Human nature was evil, and it depended on how you restrained yourself. Senior brother Yu, this is junior brother Ling Tian, the new in-name disciple of the Holy Master. Junior brother Ling, this is senior brother Yu, the eldest senior brother of our faction. Yi Sun-er hurriedly introduced the two of them, but at this moment, the corners of Ling Tian's mouth seemed to curl up with a trace of bitterness. Looking at senior brother Yu's appearance, he seemed to have some enmity towards him. He had just arrived at the 10,000 Swords Holy Land, and he was already hated by this eldest senior brother? It was because of Yi Sun-er, right? Ling Tian was able to endure the Ling people for 7 years, and in terms of thinking, he was definitely the best in the Shengzhou. At this moment, how could he not see the trace of greed and gloominess in Yu Yuntian's eyes? However, now that he had just arrived at the Holy Land and had not gained a firm foothold, offending Yu Yuntian now was obviously not a wise choice. Ling Tian's temperament had long been polished in these 7 years, and all impulsiveness to him was useless, childish, and reaping what he sowed. As long as he endured patiently and patiently, one day, he would make everyone regret underestimating him. If he wanted to rise, he had to suppress it first. Senior sister, since senior brother is here, you can go and do your work. I'll walk around by myself. Ling Tian politely kept a distance from Yi Sun. He had a good impression of this kind and gentle little senior sister, but it was far from the extent of losing his mind. Now it seemed that it was better to keep a distance from her. Senior brother, are you looking for me? Yi Sun frowned slightly and looked at Ling Tian with some confusion. Didn't this little junior brother of hers want me to take him for a walk? Why did he want me to leave now? Junior sister, the maple leaves on the North Mountain are red, and I want to call you. If senior brother has nothing else, then I'll take junior brother Ling Tian for a walk. I'll take you to the North Mountain to enjoy the scenery. Yi Sun did not give Yun Tian a chance to speak, and she directly grabbed Ling Tian's hand and walked away. Hiss! They're holding hands. Look, they're holding hands. Chapter 160. Gasps could be heard throughout the 10,000 Swords holy ground. All the young disciples stood around the main hall and looked at the girl who took the initiative to hold Ling Tian's hand with a hint of surprise in their eyes. Junior sister Sun She actually held another man's hand in front of senior brother Yu? What did this mean? It meant that senior brother Yu was always bragging. What else could it mean? Junior sister. Yun Tian also looked at the girl in front of him and her hand that was holding Ling Tian's hand in a daze. An indescribable sense of humiliation suddenly burned in his heart. Why did you not allow me to touch your hair normally, but now you take the initiative to hold another man's hand? Why don't you know what's wrong with you? You're ugly, why do you still ask? What's wrong, senior brother? Is there anything else? Yi Sun-er's pretty face was slightly serious, and her tone was already impatient. In the past year, the matter of her and Yun Tian had been spreading like wildfire in the sect. Moreover, this eldest senior brother always pretended to be very concerned about him in front of others. If not for the fact that he was the true disciple of the Holy Master and was her senior brother, even someone as good-tempered as Yi Sun-er would have fallen out with him. No, nothing, but junior brother Ling. Yun Tian looked at Ling Tian coldly, and the hatred in the depths of his eyes could not be completely concealed. Ling Tian sighed in his heart. It seemed that he had offended this senior brother. He could guess that Yi Sun-er taking the initiative to hold his hand was definitely not a brainless idiot who fell in love with him at first sight. There was love at first sight in this world, but in the mortal world, what counted was the face and the watch on the wrist. In this world, what counted was one's cultivation, talent, background, and identity. After all, according to convention, cultivators were not ugly. He had never heard of a young master of a holy ground or an ancient clan descendant who was ugly. Ling Tian had not shown any talent at all, but Yi Sun-er took the initiative to hold his hand. There could only be one reason. She was most likely using him as a shield. Killing intent flashed in Ling Tian's eyes. Senior brother. I heard that junior apprentice brother is going to ascend the Myriad Swords Immortal Road in 3 days. Let me give junior apprentice brother a word of advice. That road is not something that anyone can ascend. There are even some Soul Sea Realm junior apprentice brothers who were crushed by the sword intent emitted by those myriad divine swords when they entered the immortal road. Yun Tian sneered. The meaning behind his words was already quite obvious. You're just a piece of trash with no spiritual power. Aren't you courting death by going to the road of heavenly ascension? Know your place and stay away from junior sister Sun-er. Why don't you go back to Ling people and be a salted fish prince? Why did he have to learn from other trash and challenge the path to immortality? Haha, thank you for your reminder, senior brother. Ling Tian will definitely keep it in mind. Ling Tian's face sank. How could he not hear the mockery in Yun Tian's words? With Ling Tian's Tao of the Sword, he might be able to kill his eldest senior brother, who was in the middle stage of Paoang. But who knew who was standing behind this eldest senior brother? What kind of background did he have? Ling Tian had always been patient and prudent when doing things. Before he had enough strength, he would try his best not to make enemies with others. If it were Ling Xiao, he would have slapped Yu Yuntian so hard that even his father wouldn't recognize him. Humph. It seems that junior brother Ling is quite confident in yourself. Then I'd like to see how long you can last on the road of heavenly ascension in 3 days. Yu Yuntian sneered. Fine, since you're courting death, don't blame me for not reminding you. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure instantly disappeared. On the other hand, Yi Sun frowned and looked at Ling Tian with some guilt. Senior sister Sun, are you still not planning to let go? Ling Tian sighed. He had just arrived at the 10,000 Swords sacred ground and did not expect to cause so much trouble. Moreover, these disciples of the sacred ground did not avoid mocking and looking down on him at all. Previously, when he was in Ling people, although he knew that everyone looked down on him, they still talked about him in private. But now, for the first time, Ling Tian actually felt that his own kennel was more comfortable. Ah. I'm sorry, junior brother Ling, Yi Sun blushed and hurriedly let go of Ling Tian's hand. Her jade-like hands rubbed the corner of her clothes, and there was no longer the cold arrogance in front of Yu Yuntian. Junior brother. Just now, I intentionally told senior brother Yu that it's impossible between us. I didn't want to make things difficult for you, but it was just a coincidence. Ling Tian looked at Yi Sun meaningfully. The trace of hatred in his heart dissipated a lot when he saw the panic and guilt in the girl's eyes. It seemed that Yi Sun was not a prostitute. She might really be tired of Yu Yuntian. It's okay, senior sister. Hee junior brother, you're so obedient. Let's go, I'll take you on a tour of the 10,000 Swords sacred ground. Also, the road of heavenly ascension is not as scary as senior brother you said. Back then, I was at the peak of the Xianqing stage and finally received the summons of the Zhuxia sword. Yi Sun waved her hand and a green ancient sword suddenly appeared in her hand. A terrifying spiritual wind suddenly blew between heaven and earth. In the depths of the mountain range, there was also the sound of a sword soaring into the sky. What a terrifying ancient sword! Ling Tian's eyes narrowed. He instinctively wanted to reach out and grab the ancient sword, but in the end, he restrained himself. A doctrine artifact. And it's a high-grade doctrine artifact. This should be the inheritance of the 10,000 Swords sacred ground. Junior brother Ling, so the road of heavenly ascension is not something that you can't climb because of your low cultivation. It depends on whether you have fate with the sword. Yi Sun was calm, but her face suddenly became serious. But junior brother, there's a sword on the road of heavenly ascension that you'd better not touch. Oh? Which one? Ling Tian's interest was immediately piqued when he heard that. A sword that he couldn't touch was either a useless sword or a peerless sword. Ancient sword, Zhu Xian. Zhu Xian? Ling Tian's eyes narrowed. He only felt a wave of hostility rushing towards him, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. This sword doesn't sound like an ordinary sword. Zhu Xian? That's right. It's said that this sword was left behind by the ancestor of the 10,000 Swords sacred ground. It's said that this sword wasn't originally called this name because when the ancestor broke through the void and ascended to the celestial realm, he was blocked by an immortal. The ancestor was so angry that he killed an immortal with one sword. That's why this sword was designated as the inherited doctrine artifact of the 10,000 Swords sacred ground. It's enshrined at the end of the road of heavenly ascension and is called Zhu Xian. Yi Sun-er's pretty face was serious. She looked at Ling Tian deeply and suddenly sighed. However, this sword has been tainted with the blood of immortals. It has formed its own karma. all of the seniors of the 10,000 Swords Holy Land who have been involved with this sword have either become demons and become enemies of the world, or become slaves of this sword and die. So terrifying? The blood of an immortal? Ling Tian's eyes shone even brighter. Good stuff. He had the sword vein divine physique, so he naturally didn't believe that the sword could control people. Since it was controlled, it could only mean that his sword heart was unstable. Although he couldn't cultivate spiritual power, he was confident that his sword heart was the only one in the world. It was because the flawless sword heart that he forged was exchanged with 7 years of forbearance and 100,000 boring sword draws. He was determined to get this Zhu Xian ancient sword. Chapter 161. Junior Brother? Junior Brother? Yi Sun-er was surprised when she saw the desire in Ling Tian's eyes. Could it be that this junior brother was really after the evil sword? However, no way. That sword and his own sword were, however, Yi Sun-er was relieved after thinking about it. The celestial eradication sword was at the end of the path of immortality. With Ling Tian's cultivation base, it would be difficult for him to reach the top. When she was on the path of immortality, although she was only at the profound pure stage, she had already comprehended the Tao Law. Moreover, her Tao Law energy was special and could be put to good use on the path of immortality. Even so, she could not reach the end and obtain the evil vanquisher when she was 10 steps away from the peak. As for Ling Tian, he did not have any spiritual energy in his body. Even if he could hold on for a while, he might not be able to go far. Her words of consolation were more like encouragement for the young man. Ah, senior sister, why don't you bring me to the path of immortals first? Ling Tian woke up from his thoughts and looked at Yi Sun. All right, let's go. Yi Sun-er did not think too much about it and walked toward the peak of the sacred mountain of immortals. On the other hand, Ling Xiao held Nian Qingyun's hand as they walked down from the peak of the setting sun mountain. The setting sun divine mountain, which was originally bustling with activity, was now completely deserted. The conflict between the Qin clan and the Cloud Millet celestial sect had reached a point where it could not be resolved. With the prestige of the two supreme Taoist orthodoxies, they would not let this matter go so easily. At this moment, many of the ancient sect's powerhouses could already sense the impending storm. However, young Master Ling Zhao's actions today could be said to be of noble character and unquestionable integrity. Many of the monstrous geniuses who used to criticize this young master of the Ling clan had changed their minds and became his most loyal lackeys. My wife, between Qin Ling and Ma Liang, who do you think is lying? Ling Xiao smiled faintly as he turned to look at the beautiful figure beside him. I think you're the one lying. Nian Qingyun snorted, a hint of hesitation in her beautiful eyes. Oh? Why do you say that? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth raised a trace of inexplicable playfulness. That's right, normally, the two supreme Taoism factions would not fight each other just because of the fortune. However, the ingenuity of Ling Zhao's plan was that he allowed Ma Liang and Qin Ling to personally witness the entire process. In this way, even if the two of them were abandoned and had their souls searched, it would only make the experts of the two clans believe that the other side was the one who attacked first. Although I don't know what method you used, the relationship between the Cloud Grain Immortal sect and the Qin clan has always been good. If it's a fake, they will definitely find out. I advise you not to play with fire. Of course, Nian Qingyun wasn't sure that Ling Xiao was behind this. However, based on her understanding of the successor of the Ling people, such a shameless method was definitely his doing. Moreover, with Ling Zhao's character, he would absolutely be willing to see Qin Ling die at the hands of the Cloud Grain Immortal sect, so why put on an act to save him? There was definitely something fishy going on, but Nian Qingyun hadn't guessed it yet. No one knew her husband better than his wife. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled, but there was a hint of grievance on his face. So, I'm such a person in your heart? Forget it, it's useless no matter how much I explain. Just like you said, with the methods of the Cloud Grain Immortal Sect and the Qin clan, they will definitely find out the truth. I hope that when the time comes, they will be able to prove to you that I am innocent. Nian Qingyun's pretty face froze. Especially at this moment, the disappointment in Ling Zhao's eyes did not seem to be fake. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Everyone can choose not to believe me, but you can't. This sentence was like a devil's will that was deeply engraved in Nian Qingyun's heart. She suddenly regretted what she had said just now. After all, this successor of the Ling people was a little shameless, but he was not as despicable as the rumors made him out to be. Could it be that she had wronged him again? Hey! Stop right there! However, just as Nian Qingyun's brows were slightly furrowed and she was starting to panic, suddenly, a figure flashed out from the forest and blocked their path. You gave me a fright. Ling Zhao's body trembled. He almost used his sky demon true form to kill the dog that jumped out. However, in the next moment, his face was slightly dazed. At this moment, what appeared in front of them was actually a white and fat little pig head. However, this little pig head was indeed a pig head, but his body was in the shape of a human, and he looked like a child. Although there was a trace of demonic aura on his body, it was not very strong, so Ling Xiao did not care at all. This sunset sacred mountain was originally a barren mountain and wilderness, and there were countless demonic beasts in the forest. However, this little pig head did not look very smart. Others did not stop him, but he just had to stop him and Nian Qingyun. Where did this little demon come from? You are courting death. Nian Qingyun's expression turned serious. She was a cultivator of the righteous path, so naturally, it was her responsibility to kill demons. Although this little demon looked silly and rather cute, the demonic aura on his body was real. He seemed to have reached the Soul Sea realm. You. Who are you calling a demon? Do I not look like a human? The little pig-headed demon suddenly panicked. However, when he saw Nian Qingyun's appearance clearly, his face showed a touch of infatuation. Swish. Not only was this little demon not very smart, but he was also a little lecherous. What did you say? Nian Qingyun's pretty face turned serious. Just as she was about to kill him, she was stopped by Ling Zhao's hand. My wife, wait. Nian Qingyun looked at Ling Xiao with some confusion. She naturally felt the killing intent on his body just now. Why did he stop her now? You look like a human, and you look very much like an ancient almighty. Do you have a name? If not, I will give you one. Ling Xiao smiled and looked extremely gentle. He actually saw 500 providence points on this little demon. Although this amount of providence was not enough to fill the gaps between Ling Zhao's teeth, it was obvious that this little demon would have some opportunities in the future. Okay. The little demon immediately danced with joy. His white and chubby face was full of anticipation. Let's call you Beiji. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. The little demon immediately bowed to Ling Xiao happily. Thank you for giving me a name, young master. When Beiji is successful in cultivation, I will definitely repay young master's kindness today. Beiji imitated a human and said with a serious expression, Go. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, but a trace of playfulness flashed in his eyes. Yesterday's cause, today's effect. Although he was a villain, he was not a beast who would kill anyone he could lay his hands on. Moreover, didn't Nian Qingyun always think that he was hypocritical and cruel? In the future, in front of this goddess, he would be a rich lover. 10,000 providence points. When the day comes that Nian Qingyun truly submitted to him. Burp. I'm full. Why do you say he looks like a human? As expected, the coldness on Nian Qingyun's face was replaced by a trace of doubt. Curiosity was the right way to open the heart of a goddess. When a mountain demon cultivates to a certain level, he will ask for a title from the human race. Only then can he step into the next level and truly take on a human form. This little demon looks honest and kind, and there is not a trace of blood on him. Perhaps the good karma I have planted today will bear fruit. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. A trace of surprise flashed across Nian Qingyun's beautiful eyes. The destined woman has changed her mind. Congratulations, host, for increasing your providence points by 100, villain points by 1000. Chapter 162. I didn't expect the famous demonic sex young master to have such a side. Nian Qingyun snorted. Although her tone was sarcastic, there was a faint smile in her eyes. Then, she walked toward Sunset City. At this time, Ling Xiao opened the system store and browsed carefully, while Nian Qingyun lowered her guard. Hehehe. As long as I'm happy. Nian Qingyun's expression froze when the two of them reached the gates of the setting Sun City. At this time, above the city gate, the three words Sunset City had been changed to Qingshao City. A wisp of floral fragrance wafted over, and peach trees filled the area as far as the eye could see. Damn! It was autumn, but the peach trees on both sides of the street were full of peach blossoms. That's more like it. Ling Xiao reached out and put his arm around Nian Qingyun's shoulder. His face suddenly became serious. If one day I become the emperor, you will be the empress of the world. In this world, I will give you everything you want. Boom. It was a very cliché and not very meaningful. But at this moment, Nian Qingyun was inexplicably shocked. He actually changed the name of the city for me. He even said he would give me the world. Miss Nian, this 10 miles of peach blossoms is not as good as yours. Ling Xiao reached out and took out a red flower from his pocket. It was as attractive as a peach flower. He gently put it beside Nian Qingyun's ear. You shameless! Nian Qingyun gritted her teeth and suppressed the ripples in her heart. Then, she walked toward the city. Ha ha! However, at this moment, Ling Xiao did not feel angry at all. In fact, there was even a hint of a sinister smile in his eyes. Wife, wait for me. Ling Xiao, how are your injuries? Nian Qingyun stopped in her tracks. Her expression was extremely cold. At this time, she was very confused. According to her master, she could not fall in love with any man in the world. But now, the more time she spent with Ling Xiao, the more surprises she had, the more she felt that she gradually liked the feeling of being taken care of. This feeling made Nian Qingyun extremely fearful and disgusted. Therefore, she had to kill Ling Xiao as soon as possible. This way, everything would return to how it was in the beginning. She was still the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace, who had a firm mind and was emotionless. As for Ling Xiao, he was just a tool she used to transcend the tribulation and sever her emotions. Wife, I just went through a fierce battle, and you wanted to kill me. Now that it's late, why don't we do something interesting? Ling Xiao smiled sinisterly. Nian Qingyun's pretty face flashed with panic. Damn it! This expression again. Could it be that this bastard had drugged her again? Impossible. From that day onwards, she had always been on guard against Ling Xiao. She would never easily consume anything that he took out. But if I didn't drug him, why is this bastard looking at me like that? Could it be that he really thought that he could completely move me with just a few words of love? Ridiculous. Ling Xiao, how dare you insult me? Nian Qingyun's pretty face was slightly cold. Just as she was about to circulate her spiritual power, her eyes suddenly widened. Cultivation! Where did my cultivation go? Could it be that what Master said was true? Once I lost my virginity, my cultivation would be gone? No. It's not like that. Ling Xiao. It must be Ling Xiao. Haha, wife, I forgot to tell you that the flower beside your ear is called Spirit Dispersing Flower. It can seal the spiritual power and cultivation of all cultivators below the divine general level. Ling Xiao grinned. Nian Qingyun suddenly felt as if she was facing a formidable enemy. She fiercely plucked the red flower. It's too late. It will take effect in 10 breaths. However, at this time, Ling Xiao just shook his head and smiled. His figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of Nian Qingyun. Once this flower is touched, your cultivation will be sealed for at least 8 hours. The system's products must be the best. Damn it. Another 2,000 villainous points. You. Don't come over. Let me go. Let me go. Nian Qingyun ran away in a panic. However, with her cultivation gone, how could she escape from Ling Xiao's hands? On the streets of the ancient city, the extras who were playing the zither and dancing were suddenly stunned when they saw the white-robed figure holding Nian Qingyun. They all kept quiet out of fear. Awesome. Young master is really too awesome. Not only did he kiss the goddess of the Taoist palace on the street, but he also directly held her in his arms. What are you looking at? Play the music and dance for me. Ling Xiao shouted coldly. Everyone trembled in fear and played desperately. Ling Xiao! Let me go! Let me go! Nian Qingyun was about to cry at this time. What's going on? Why do I always feel like I'm being controlled by Ling Xiao? Why is it that every time I let down my guard against him, this damn bastard will take advantage of it? Let you go? My wife, last time in the Ling people, you took advantage of me when I was drunk and forced yourself on me. Shouldn't we change this time? I'll be the main attacker. That's only fair. Ling Xiao smiled eerily. He ignored Nian Qingyun's struggle and ran directly toward the city lord's mansion. What a joke. This country belongs to the Ling people. The city lord's mansion is not ours to use. At this time, the guards of the city lord's mansion looked at a figure passing over their heads. A flash of daze flashed in their eyes, and then it turned into anger. Damn it! Who dares to trespass into the city lord's mansion? One of the guards' aura rippled. He was a divine general expert. Do you want to die? However, just as he turned around and was about to chase after the figure, another person beside him slapped him hard in the face. You dare to hit me? The divine general expert was the leader of the guards. At this time, he was completely stunned. What's wrong with this world? Someone dared to trespass in the city lord's mansion in the Ling people's territory. Even his own subordinate dared to slap him. However, just as he was about to fly into a rage, the person in front of him looked into the distance with admiration. That's Lord Ling Xiao. Gulp. The divine general expert trembled all over and almost fainted on the ground. That slap felt a little good. Ling Xiao. Let me go or I won't let you go. Nian Qingyun gritted her teeth. However, her cultivation had dissipated and she had no strength to resist at all. Hearing this, Ling Xiao immediately lowered his head and looked at the beautiful face in front of him. A gentle smile immediately appeared at the corner of his mouth. My wife, you're talking as if you'll let me go if I let you go now. You! Nian Qingyun was furious. She opened her mouth and bit Ling Xiao's shoulder hard. However, Ling Xiao was the true body of the sky demon. How could he be hurt by a woman's bite? He immediately pretended to be angry and grinned. The coldness in his eyes made Nian Qingyun feel her lower body suddenly tighten. My wife, you've completely angered me. Tonight I'll punish you well. No. No. Nian Qingyun's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. For the first time in her life, she felt what despair was. Wait until you grow up again. Ling Xiao lowered his head and glanced at Feng Ling's chest. He shook his head slightly. Lolas had 3 treasures. They were delicate, cute, and smelled good. But the only bad thing was, grow up again? How old are you? I'm already 108 years old. Feng Ling put her hands on her waist and said with an unconvinced expression. I'm not talking about age. How about this, in a few days, I'll get you some papaya spirit fruit and ancient barbarian milk. Let's see if it has any effect. Ling Xiao smiled sinisterly, causing Feng Ling's expression to be slightly stunned. What nonsense! I don't want to eat those things. No, little ancestor, can you stop peeping at me? Also, who are you? Since you can leave this tower, why did you come back? Ling Xiao asked the question that had been bothering him. After all, Feng Ling's identity meant a lot to him. Even if this girl didn't show any hostility to him, it was still a threat to have someone by his side who could see what he was doing at any time. With Ling Xiao's temperament, if he could take her down, he would not say such nonsense. However, the problem was that although Feng Ling looked like a little girl, her methods and aura made Ling Xiao feel incomparably fearful. Before he was confident, Ling Xiao did not want to completely fall out with her. He did not want to become her nourishment before killing Feng Ling originally. Ling Xiao thought that since this girl came from the 9th floor, she must have been sealed here. It was even more likely that the bone of unknown origin had developed a spiritual intelligence and transformed. However, since she could easily walk out of the god sealing tower, it proved that his guess was wrong. Then, who was she? Even if Ling Xiao had the eye of nirvana, he could not see any clues. It was obvious that this girl had exceeded the settings of this world. Why should I leave? This is my home. Also, I didn't peep at you. I'm not a scoundrel like you. I just wanted to find you to play. Feng Ling snorted coldly and disappeared in an instant. You, Ling Xiao smiled helplessly. He was really helpless. To think that he, the great villain demon king, the son of destiny, the daughter of Providence, and the daughter of Providence, was helpless against a little girl of unknown origin. He was afraid that someone would scold him again. Also, you're really bad. You actually did such shameful things. However, you're quite good at pretending. It's quite fun. Feng Ling's voice came from the void, scaring Ling Xiao so much that he almost collapsed to the ground. This damned little girl, as expected, she could see everything. No, he had to think of a way to block her divine sense. Divine sense? Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly flashed. His soul palace was formed by the ancient Pangu stone. Could naturally block others from peeping. He did not restrict this girl's movements. Wouldn't it be fine as long as he placed the 8 desolation glazed pagoda in his soul palace? Thinking of this, Ling Xiao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Feng Ling, this girl, was very stubborn. She said that she did not peep. Even if her divine sense was blocked, she would not find trouble with him. Otherwise, wouldn't he be slapping his face? Chapter 164. Mi Yong. Ling Xiao stood in the tower and suddenly called out. Boom! The sky demon chi surged as Mi Yong suddenly appeared in front of Ling Xiao. No, do you have to make such a big commotion every time you appear? Ling Xiao sighed helplessly. On the other hand, a sweet smile appeared on Folded Shadow's face. Greetings, my lord. I obtained a treasure and I'll give it to you. Ling Xiao suddenly waved his hand, and a black light instantly filled the sky. A terrifying aura descended like a collapsing mountain, descending towards Mi Yong. Mi Yong narrowed his eyes as he knew that this was a test from Ling Xiao. Demonic light surged around his body as he grabbed the black light. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of collision rang out. In Mi Yong's hand, there was a pitch-black metal rod that emitted a faint aura of desolation. It was the primordial divine artifact that the divine Marquis Elder of the Cloudy Immortal Sect had given to Ling Xiao. Good rod. Mi Yong's eyes narrowed as he waved his hands. The black rod turned into a wind vortex that moved up and down. Yesterday, when Folded Shadow obtained the demonic dagger and showed it off to him, Mi Yong was somewhat jealous. But now, the divine rod that his lord had given him was obviously of a higher grade. How could he not be happy? Thank you, my lord. Mi Yong knelt on one knee as his eyes were filled with respect. Unlike the other great demons that he had seen before, Ling Xiao was extremely cruel to his enemies, but he took care of his subordinates. Who wouldn't want to follow such a lord? SSS. I feel like something is missing. At this moment, Ling Xiao frowned as he looked at the demonic ape and shook his head. Yes, it's missing a hoop. Ling Xiao's eyes lit up as he took out the wind-fire golden hoop that Qinling had given him and gestured at Mi Yong's head. Divine artifact. Mi Yong's eyes narrowed, and even folded shadow could not help but cover her red lips. Is Lord planning to give Mi Yong another divine artifact? Although they were from the ancient era, they had been sealed for 1,000 years. In ancient times, although the cultivation of living beings was terrifying, there were very few divine artifacts. However, as the era progressed and more experts fell, the number of divine artifacts left behind in the world naturally increased as well. Now, those geniuses and monsters did not dare to go out unless they had a few divine artifacts on them. He couldn't afford to lose face like this. Mi-yong, do you know why I'm rewarding you today? The spiritual light in Ling Xiao's hand flickered, and the golden bangle in his hand also emitted a divine radiance. Then, it gradually expanded until it was the same size as Mi-yong's head. My lord, this subordinate is terrified. Mi-yong shook his head. His contribution to this treasure hunt in the setting sun mountain wasn't that great. On the other hand, it was Folded Shadow who successfully helped Ling Xiao turn the Qin clan and the Cloudy Millet immortal sect against him. Although his lord had bestowed him with the overlapping shadows Dao Law spirit fruit and a divine artifact, what did he do to deserve 2 divine artifacts? Because I'm happy. Ling Xiao grinned and fastened the golden bangle on Mi-yong's head. There's an inner taste. Seeing the confusion on Mi-yong's face, a smile appeared on Folded Shadow's face. However, he secretly swore to himself that he would work harder for his lord in the future. Today, Mi-yong was bestowed with a treasure because of his loyalty to his lord. His attitude was more positive than Folded Shadow's. Thank you, my lord. Mi-yong knelt down and bowed. Ling Xiao nodded in satisfaction. He already had eldest senior brother, but second senior brother was still young. Where was third senior brother? By the time he gathered all 4 members of the journey to the west, it would probably be time for him to go to the Saint sect to obtain the scriptures. Interesting. Who said that the life of a villain was boring? That's because you haven't discovered the beauty of this world. Oh, if it's not beautiful, we'll create it ourselves. Cultivate well. Ling Xiao disappeared into thin air, and through the 8 desolation glazed pagoda into his soul palace. Damn you, Ling Xiao! On the 9th floor, an angry roar came, scaring all the demons sealed in the ancient pagoda. They felt a chill on their backs. City Lord's Mansion's rear hall. Ling Xiao stood in front of the window with his hands behind his back and looked at the raindrops falling outside. Unknowingly, the weather had turned cold. A soft moan suddenly came from behind. Ling Xiao turned around and saw Nian Qingyun, who was slowly waking up. A playful look appeared on his face. Nian Qingyun frowned slightly. However, when she saw the young man standing in the distance, her eyes suddenly widened. Ling Xiao! You shameless scum, bastard, I'm going to kill you! Nian Qingyun shouted coldly. Her pretty face seemed to be flushed with anger. Boom! A terrifying spiritual pressure spread out, causing the entire city lord's mansion to be silent. However, in the next moment, Nian Qingyun's expression suddenly froze. She looked down at her hands in horror. The surprise in her eyes was no less than when Ling Xiao drugged her. My realm, actually broke through? Nian Qingyun muttered to herself blankly. Her beautiful face was full of confusion. How could it be? How could one's realm break through on their own? She had worked hard for 17 years to reach the state of Paoang. However, after being slept with by Ling Xiao for 2 nights, her realm actually entered the middle stage of the Paoang realm? Ridiculous! Ridiculous! It was simply nonsense. If that was really the case, then why did she still cultivate? Couldn't she just sleep with Ling Xiao every day? Thinking of this, Nian Qingyun suddenly froze. What am I thinking? Why would I want to sleep with him? However, that feeling was really strange. Ling Xiao, what's going on? Nian Qingyun looked up blankly and glared at Ling Xiao. However, the latter just shook his head slightly and said bitterly, "Wife, you also feel it. I am also very puzzled. I didn't expect that we could cultivate like this. Could it be that we are really a match made in heaven?" You. Bullshit. How could I be a match made in heaven with a scoundrel like you? Ling Xiao, I must kill you today. Nian Qingyun shouted coldly. Just as she was about to pounce on Ling Xiao, she seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, a trace of crimson appeared on her beautiful face. Her clothes had been rudely torn by Ling Xiao yesterday. She didn't bring any other clothes with her at all. Haha, wife, what's wrong with you? Do you feel sorry for me? You can't bear to kill me? Ling Xiao smiled evilly. However, a ray of dark light suddenly bloomed in his hand. A moon-white robe suddenly appeared in his hand. Then, he threw it at Nian Qingyun. This moonlight divine robe is a divine artifact. Take it as a gift from me to my wife. Alas! Another 10,000 villain points. Although Ling Xiao had plundered a lot of villain points from the Sunset God Mountain these days, he couldn't afford to squander them like this. However, since he wanted to catch a big fish, how could he not cast a long line? He wanted Nian Qingyun to be able to see his shadow all the time. Chapter 165. You. I won't take anything from you. Nian Qingyun already had a shadow of Ling Xiao in her heart. This bastard is really full of evil tricks. He's always scheming against others. Master's other words might be a little wrong. But that sentence about all the men in the world being beasts lusting after his body is not wrong at all. Oh, if you don't want it, I'll take my leave first. Ling Xiao nodded with a smile and turned to leave. Stop right there. Nian Qingyun's pretty face trembled. She looked around the hall and found that there was nothing to cover her except for the red quilt covering her body. But if she went out with the red quilt, wouldn't it be telling everyone that she and Ling Xiao slept together? Wife, you don't want me to leave again? Why don't we take advantage of the fact that it's still early? Ling Xiao smiled evilly, scaring Nian Qingyun so much that her pretty face suddenly turned pale. This damned bastard! If she was tormented by this bastard again, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to get out of bed. Don't come over! Nian Qingyun cried out in shock. Unknowingly, she was already looking at Ling Xiao with some panic in her eyes. Haha, okay. I like to listen to you the most. I'll do whatever you say. Ling Xiao nodded with a smile. With a gentle look, he threw the moon robe to Nian Qingyun. You turn around. Nian Qingyun clenched her silver teeth. You'll listen to me? Then if I ask you to die, will you go? No. I want to kill him with my own hands. Otherwise, my Dao heart will be dissatisfied. Okay. Ling Xiao surprisingly didn't refute. Instead, he turned around obediently. Nian Qingyun was a little surprised. When did this bastard become so obedient? But at this time, she didn't think too much about it. She lifted the red quilt and revealed that picturesque fairy-like body. This moonlight divine robe was a product of the system. It was a high-grade item. It wasn't because Ling Xiao couldn't give Nian Qingyun a better one. It was because this moonlight robe was a perfect match for his imperial star robe. Nian Qingyun first observed the white robe in front of her. After confirming that there were no talismans on it, she put it on herself. However, there was a row of jade buttons on the back of the white robe. Nian Qingyun didn't want to ask Ling Xiao for help, so she could only fumble around and fasten them herself. But the last one was a little tricky. But at this moment she clearly heard Ling Xiao suddenly say, "A little to the left." Yes, a little more to the left. At this moment, Nian Qingyun's back was facing Ling Xiao, so she instinctively thought that the latter had taken advantage of her unpreparedness to turn around and peek. Fortunately, he had already put on his clothes. But just as Nian Qingyun looked back with a cold expression, she saw that Ling Xiao still had his back to her. He was staring at a bronze mirror on the table, revealing a wretched smile. Ling Xiao. The entire City Lord mansion was instantly filled with a shout. Soon after, a terrifying aura that caused one's heart to palpitate spread out and enveloped the entire ancient city. Many cultivators who didn't know what was going on walked to the streets, looking up in the direction of the City Lord mansion with a look of confusion on their faces. Who dared to call the young master by his name? Who dared to make a move in the City Lord mansion? No, this voice seems a little familiar. It seems to be Goddess Qingyun. Many people recalled the way Ling Xiao ran around with the goddess in his arms, and a hint of understanding appeared in their eyes. It was normal for a young couple to flirt. Wife, listen to me. Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly, but Nian Qingyun's ancient sword slashed horizontally, instantly arriving in front of him. Wife, are you trying to provoke a war between the Ling people and the ethereal Dao Palace by killing me now? Ling Xiao didn't panic at all. Lightning surged on his palms, and he stretched out 2 fingers to pinch the tip of the sword. The ear-piercing sound of the sword instantly rang out. Even with the strength of Ling Xiao's physical body, he felt a trace of pain between his fingers at that moment. The goddess of the Dao Palace lived up to her name. Although she didn't use all her strength in that attack, it wasn't something that Lin Shi and Zhuge Luyun could compare to. If Ling Xiao hadn't used the Thunder Dao Law at that moment, the sword would have pierced through his fingers and pierced his heart. You're serious? Ling Xiao's expression turned serious, and the lightning around him suddenly surged into the sky, pulling the ancient sword in front of him. Nian Qingyun was caught off guard, especially when she saw the trace of blood dripping from the tip of the sword. A look of panic flashed in her eyes. Before she could react, Ling Xiao's palm was already in front of her eyes. A fight between experts was like a flash of lightning. Nian Qingyun's distraction just now meant that she was destined to be completely passive. But seeing the anger in Ling Xiao's eyes, she felt a little wronged. In the end, she closed her eyes, looking like she was ready to kill him. Ling Xiao was stunned, but in the end, he was almost amused by this heartless and somewhat simple-minded goddess of the Dao Palace. Ling Xiao, if you don't kill me today, I will definitely kill you. Seeing that Ling Xiao didn't make a move, Nian Qingyun dodged, and her pretty face regained its cold look. A woman's heart was really like a needle in a haystack. No, it was a needle in a haystack. Wife, you killed me in the territory of the Ling people. Do you think the Ling people will let you and the ethereal Dao Palace go? Ling Xiao sneered, not at all worried by Nian Qingyun's threat. Although with Nian Qingyun's luck points, he might not be able to kill this goddess of the Dao Palace. But if he wanted to leave, no one could stop him. Don't threaten me with the Ling people. Ling Xiao, don't forget that you said that if I could defeat you, you would take the initiative to break off the engagement. You humiliated me time and time again. Even if I kill you, do you think the Ling people will make things difficult for me? Nian Qingyun's voice was clear and filled with killing intent. Although Ling Xiao didn't know how much of an act she was putting on, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seemed that love was born with time. It was a long way to go to make this goddess of the Dao Palace completely submit to him. Haha, I did promise you, but who knows? If you kill me, you will still carry the title of Ling Xiao's fiancé. At that time, you will never be able to get rid of it for the rest of your life. Ling Xiao smiled sinisterly, but Nian Qingyun couldn't help but narrow her eyes. She didn't want to break off the engagement like other people, who liked more outstanding geniuses. Instead, she really didn't want her name to be associated with this scoundrel. But just like what Ling Xiao said, if he died in her hands for no reason, wouldn't she be despised by others as a vicious woman who killed her husband? As for Ling Xiao humiliating her, she couldn't possibly explain it to everyone on the street, could she? For a moment, Nian Qingyun hesitated. But I do have a way to solve the problem between the two of us. At that moment, Ling Xiao suddenly grinned with a sinister look in his eyes. Chapter 166. What method? Nian Qingyun frowned. She instinctively felt that Ling Xiao was up to no good again. However, for some reason, she was looking forward to it. I'd like to see what kind of evil tricks this damn bastard can play. There's less than half a month until the Myriad Sect Martial meeting. I think you'll go too, right? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. His white robe was shining with starlight. When he stood next to Nian Qingyun, they were a perfect match. Of course, the Myriad Sect Martial meeting is just an opportunity. Who in the eastern border doesn't covet the secret realm on Dao Comprehension Mountain? Nian Qingyun frowned. What did participating in the Myriad Sect Martial meeting have to do with the grudge between her and Ling Xiao? That's it. I'll go too. Why don't we make a bet? Ling Xiao grinned and his eyes flickered. What bet? Nian Qingyun looked at him warily. Even if she was just talking to Ling Xiao, she had to be on her guard. She didn't want to be tricked by this bastard and have her clothes ripped off. No, she would be beaten black and blue. It didn't seem appropriate. In short, she couldn't believe his expression. When the time comes, you and I will have a battle at the peak of Enlightenment Mountain and completely end this grudge. If you win, I, Ling Xiao, will definitely not frown if you want to kill me. But if you lose, Ling Xiao pondered for a moment. Suddenly, a playful smile appeared on his face. You have to confess to me in front of all the sects. Of course, before we fight, I will tell the world about our agreement. Confess. Dream on. What? Wife, are you afraid that you will lose? Nonsense. How can I lose to a scoundrel like you? Nian Qingyun gritted her teeth and nodded gently. As you said, Ling Xiao, I'll wait for you on Dao Comprehension Mountain in half a month. After saying that, Nian Qingyun didn't hesitate at all. Her figure flashed and instantly disappeared. Ling Xiao was very strong. He had the Dao Law and his talent was close to a demon. But was Nian Qingyun weak? Bringing chaos to all races, peerless and unparalleled. Even though Nian Qingyun didn't dare call herself invincible in the Eastern Territory, there were absolutely no more than a handful of youths that were on par with her. Especially now that she had made a breakthrough in her cultivation. As long as she stabilized her cultivation in the next few days, then, Ling Xiao, just you wait. This time, I will trample you under my feet in front of the entire eastern border and end this ill-fated relationship between us. Nian Qingyun stood at the peak of the mountain. Beside her, the 9 heavens golden phoenix looked at her with a complicated expression. Although it wasn't by Nian Qingyun's side these days, it could still feel something. The aura of the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace seemed to be somewhat different from before. Although it was still frighteningly cold, under that coldness, there was a rare trace of melancholy. Looking at the empty hall in front of him, Ling Xiao's expression gradually turned cold. Although he did not see through Nian Qingyun's background, it was not difficult for him to defeat her with his current means. Moreover, there were many villain points available in the system. He needed to prepare well in the next 2 weeks. But before that, he still had a few things to do. Buzz! The space suddenly rippled and a black-robed figure suddenly appeared. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. The figure in front of him had already bowed to him. Sir! Uncle Ghost, why are you here? Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed. Given this person's status, it must be something important for him to come out of the Ling people and come here in person. Emperor Ling sent me to find out about the young man who provoked you that day. I found out some information. Lin Shi. Ling Xiao's face froze. Then, a bitter smile flashed across his eyes. His father was really good at strategizing. If Ling Xiao had not stopped him that day, Emperor Ling would have sent people to kill Lin Shi. Although it was one thing to kill Lin Shi given the latter's providence. But given Ling Xiao's understanding of Emperor Ling, he would definitely do so. After all, His father had always been meticulous and ruthless. He never took risks. That's right, sir. Lin Shi came from a small city at the border of the eastern border. The Lin family used to have 30 members, but unexpectedly, they were all killed 7 years ago. Lin Shi fell off a cliff while running away and his whereabouts were unknown. A year later, he began to appear in various secret lands and ancient battlefields. That was how he met Goddess Nian. His father died in battle that day, but... A look of hesitation flashed across Phantom's face. What's wrong, Uncle Ghost? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. He had already guessed what Lin Shi had gone through. It was the proper setting of Emperor Yan. Even if there were some discrepancies, there was almost no change in the main plot. What he was worried about now was his sister. Or rather, his sister's identity. In the past, the girl called Ling would definitely have her own opportunity. But he did not know whether this opportunity was in the person or the force. His sister, Bai Ling, is missing. She hasn't appeared yet. She hasn't appeared yet? Ling Xiao sighed. He instinctively felt a little uneasy. Given Uncle Ghost's means, to be able to hide her whereabouts from him, it was obvious that Bai Ling was either dead, or the force behind her was very powerful. Death was impossible. After all, she was the sister of the Chosen One. She was probably very lucky. But in the entire Xingzhou, how many people could hide from the eyes and ears of an emperor god? That's right, sir. I guess that Bai Ling is either dead or hidden by someone. Phantom nodded. Although he did not know why Sir had stopped Emperor Ling from killing Lin Shi, he guessed that Sir had his own reasons. But why did the young master not seem to be interested in Lin Shi but seem to be interested in his sister? Uncle Ghost, who do you think can hide someone from you? Ling Xiao smiled inexplicably. Although Lin Shi had escaped before his death, he was most likely crippled. Even the grandpa in his ring was beginning to suspect that Lin Shi had almost reached the end of his road. On the other hand, would his younger sister become the next girl to be plundered by him? The Saint sect has the ability, but the forces in the eastern border should not. Uncle Ghost, do you mean that the little girl is not in the eastern border? Ling Xiao pondered and looked up at the black figure in front of him. Uncle Ghost, have you found out who killed the Lin family? Or, which force did the Lin family offend? I've asked around. Almost all the people who saw the Lin family being destroyed that day died. Only one person at the peak of the Xianqing stage luckily escaped. According to him, the person who destroyed the Lin family was a white-robed swordsman who had the Taoist principles and was in the Paong realm. But he looked unfamiliar and was not from the eastern border. As for who the Lin family offended, I didn't find out. A white-robed swordsman? Taoist principles? Paong state? What puzzled Phantom was that at this moment, Ling Xiao's expression suddenly became lifeless. After a long while, he smiled bitterly. It can't be so coincidental, right? Chapter 167. Back when Ling Xiao was in the northern wilderness, he had encountered a white-clothed swordsman chasing after Bai Jishi. That person's cultivation level was at the Paong level, and the way of the sword in Ling Xiao's body was taken from him. For some reason, the silhouette of that person appeared in Ling Xiao's mind when he heard Gui Ying's words. Could there be such a coincidence? TSK. Who should I ask? Whether it was a coincidence or not, it was up to those lousy authors. But what puzzled Ling Xiao was that, if it was really the white-robed swordsman who had annihilated the Lin family that day, could it be said that it was the Temple of Blood Soul that had annihilated the Lin family? How did a small city on the eastern border and a small clan in decline attract the attention of such a faction? It should be said that in the Xingzhou continent, the Blood Soul Temple was far more intimidating than the Ling people and the myriad Tao demon sect. However, such a colossus had actually sent a law of Tao expert to exterminate a small, rundown clan? Could it be that the Lin family was still hiding some supreme treasure? But as soon as this thought appeared, Ling Xiao instantly extinguished it. If the Lin family really had some supreme treasure, it must be on Lin Shi. But Ling Xiao had seen all of Lin Shi's trump cards, most of which were given to him by the old grandpa in the ring. And the old grandpa should have been picked up after he fell off the cliff. Strange. Sir, what's wrong? Gui Ying looked at Ling Xiao in confusion, especially the gloomy expression on his face, which made him feel inexplicably worried. If it's not convenient for you to do it, I'll go kill Lin Shi now. No need, Uncle Gui. Go back and tell my father not to interfere in my affairs. Also, the Qin clan and the Cloudy Millet Immortal sect are bound to fight soon. I'll go back and discuss with the enemy of 10,000 people to see if we can come up with a plan. Bring this letter to my father. Ling Xiao shook his head and casually handed Gui Ying a piece of golden paper. How could he kill a little cutie like Lin Shi just like that? If he were to die in the hands of others, then the reward for killing him would be gone. Qin clan and Cloudy Dew Immortal sect? Gui Ying's face froze. Immediately after, he seemed to have thought of something. His eyes suddenly flashed with shock. Young Master is saying, the Ling people had already heard about what had happened on the summit of Sunset Peak yesterday. Even though there was something fishy going on, both Ma Liang and Qin Ling were related to the reputation of the two supreme Taoism factions. This matter wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't a small one either. But no matter what, these two forces would definitely not be as close as before in the future. Go, I'm going back to the Myriad Tao Demon sect. Uncle Ghost, it's fine. You don't have to follow me. Ling Xiao's last sentence was clearly an order, not a negotiation. Hearing this, Ghost Shadow nodded and his figure instantly disappeared. It's getting more and more interesting. Lin Shi, don't disappoint me. Although Ling Xiao had yet to guess the identity of Ling Xiao's sister, there was no point in thinking too much about it. As long as she appeared in front of him, he would definitely be able to recognize her. Young Master, I've prepared some food and wine in the main hall. If you wake up, come and eat with your wife. Suddenly, Ling Ping's voice came from outside the hall. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and pushed the door open. As expected, he saw Ling Ping standing outside the door with a humble expression. Greetings, young master. Behind him stood his seventh concubine. It seems that City Lord Ling has a good life in Qingshao City. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Ling Ping directly knelt on the ground with a terrified expression. Young master, I'm afraid. Although his surname was Ling, it was given by the Ling people. In the eyes of a young master like Ling Xiao, he was still just a servant. Did you send Qin Ling back? Young master, I personally sent him back to the Qin clan. Did the Qin clan have any doubts? Ling Xiao nodded. Ling Ping was quite reliable. At least, the arrangement of Qingshao City was in line with his wishes. No. After all, Qin Ling is a young master of the Qin clan. Although his talent is not the best, he still has some status in the Qin clan. Ling Ping meant that Qin Ling must have said a lot of good things about Ling Xiao in the Qin clan. Ling Xiao felt that he could make use of such an upright young man in the future. No, he should help him more. For example, if all the young masters of the Qin clan died, and all the talents of the collateral branches died, wouldn't the position of the successor of the Qin clan fall into Qin Ling's hands? After all, the young master of the Qin clan's eyes when he left couldn't lie. He really loved me. Heartless young master Ling, you are going to be rich. You did a good job. Ling Xiao threw a few blue elixirs casually and walked towards the air. There, his golden dragon carriage had been waiting for a long time. City Lord Ling, take care of yourself. In the land of the Qin clan. Different from the land of the Ling people, this place was not deep in the mountains, but a bustling ancient city. In the middle of the ancient city, there was a magnificent golden palace that stretched for thousands of miles. That's right. The land of the Qin clan was made of real gold and spiritual jade, which showed the supreme nobility. The Qin clan had been passed down for thousands of years and had produced many powerful figures. This was a priceless material in the eyes of mortals, but to the people of the Qin clan, it was just a material used to build palaces. It was not worth mentioning. But today, the sky above the holy palace of the Qin clan was covered by a dark cloud. Several old men in white stood in the air. The aura surging around them was comparable to the power of heaven. Below them, the Qin clan's God King experts were on guard. However, there was also anger on their faces. Feng Baiyang, you broke into the holy palace of the Qin clan rashly. Do you want to start a war? A divine king of the Qin clan glared at the leading old man in the air and shouted angrily. The old man in white stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Although there was only a wisp of aura around him, it was enough to make heaven and earth pale in comparison. Feng Baiyang, the Grand Elder of the Cloud Dew Immortal Sect, one of the two great divine emperors of the Cloud Dew Immortal Sect. It was rumored that this Grand Elder had reached the Divine Emperor realm 100 years ago. His cultivation was unfathomable. Call the Qin Emperor out. However, Feng Baiyang did not care about the clamor of the divine kings of the Qin clan. He stepped out and was about to barge into the Qin clan. It should be known that for any supreme orthodoxy, barging into the ancestral land was a great provocation. Unfortunately, Feng Baiyang was a genuine emperor god expert. With just a few divine kings, none of them dared to stop him. Haha, Grand Elder Feng, what brings you here? At this moment, a sneer suddenly came from the depths of the holy palace. Then, a wisp of golden light bloomed in the sky. It was like the sun, exuding supreme majesty. The ancient technique of the Qin clan, the divine sun body, was the top creation superpower in the Xingzhou. As the sunlight shone, a figure in a golden robe suddenly stepped out from the void and appeared in front of Feng Baiyang and the others. Seeing this, even with Grand Elder Yunshu's cultivation, he could not help but narrow his eyes. Haha, no wonder the Qin clan is so arrogant. The Qin Emperor's cultivation has improved again. Chapter 168. The Qin clan is arrogant? What do you mean by that, Grand Elder? The golden light dissipated, revealing a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance. The middle-aged man's eyes shone with divine light. When he opened and closed them, it was as if the sun was rotating. Beside him, Qin Ling's face was cold, and his eyes were filled with hatred. The guilty party was complaining about the victim. These immortal sect experts were really shameless. The Qin clan had yet to find trouble with them, but they came to find trouble with them first. However, why was Ma Yang nowhere to be seen? Since the Qin Emperor has brought young Masterling here, you must have guessed our intentions, right? Feng Baiyang snorted and looked at Qin Ling calmly. Qin Ling's heart trembled, and he almost vomited blood. Grand Elder, are you here to apologize to my son? The Qin Emperor smiled, and his tone was filled with supreme power. A few immortal sect elders dared to cause trouble in the Qin clan's territory? If it weren't for the fact that he was afraid of Yunshu, the Qin Emperor wouldn't have bothered to talk to them. He would have just activated the array and kept them here. Of course, although the array was powerful, it wasn't easy to activate it. With the Qin Emperor's strength, he would need to recuperate for dozens of years to activate it. Now that the world was in chaos, if he fell, the Qin clan would be in trouble. Qin Emperor, stop messing around. Qin Ling killed Yunshu's disciple. If you don't give me an explanation... Feng Baiyang suddenly clenched his fist, and the space behind him crumbled layer by layer, transforming into rivers and mountains. It was like a fairyland. Explanation? Grand Elder, did you make a mistake? Leng told me that he killed your esteemed sect's true disciple because your disciple massacred my Qin clan's disciples and seized their good fortune. Grand Elder, shouldn't you give me an explanation? The Qin Emperor sneered, and his face was filled with battle intent. Although this matter was strange, he had checked Qin Ling's divine sense, and there were no signs of him being controlled. In other words, with Qin Ling's personality, he wouldn't do such a thing to destroy the relationship between the Qin clan and Yun Shu. Then the problem must be with Yun Shu's disciple. Explanation? What kind of explanation do you want? Feng Baiyang's body trembled, and his old face was filled with anger. An immortal sect's true disciple was not only related to the inheritance of a bloodline, but also the face of the immortal sect. If Su Yuwei and Qin Ling really fought over the fortune and were defeated in the end, then Su Yuwei could only blame himself for not being skilled enough. But that Qin Ling was vicious and merciless, and his methods were so cruel that it angered both men and gods. The Cloudy Dew immortal sect saw the Qin clan as a friend, but they didn't expect him to do such a disgraceful thing. Most importantly, Yun Shu's reputation could not be tarnished by anyone. Great Elder, have you never thought that there's something wrong with Yun Shu's successor? Maybe he was being used by someone? The Qin Emperor was indeed the owner of a supreme inheritance. His thoughts were meticulous, and ordinary people could not compare to him. Hearing this, the smile on Feng Baiyang's face became even more sarcastic. Used by others? This emperor personally searched Ma Yang's soul and saw with my own eyes that evil creature Qin Ling cruelly killed my immortal sect's disciples when they were unprepared and stole the spirit fruit. Qin Emperor, you still want to quibble? Soul search? The Qin Emperor narrowed his eyes, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. How could this be? If Ma Yang's soul was really searched, he would have been dead or retarded by now. Unexpectedly, the Cloudy Dew immortal sect was so forceful this time. They didn't hesitate to sacrifice another successor just to find out the truth. It seemed like, Father, in order to prove the innocence of my clan, I am willing to let you search my soul in front of me. Qin Ling gritted his teeth and suddenly turned to look at the Qin Emperor in front of him. Huh! The Qin Emperor was slightly taken aback. Then, he shook his head and chuckled. Feng Baiyang, your Cloudy Dew immortal sect didn't even let go of your own disciples. What kind of reputation do you have? I don't believe a single word you said. Lung don't worry. The Qin clan is not afraid of anyone. The Qin Emperor raised his head and looked at the few figures in the sky calmly. He had already made up his mind. Good, good, good. It seems like the Qin Emperor has made up his mind. If so, please accept this battle invitation. The 3,000 elders and disciples of the Cloudy Dew immortal sect are waiting for the Qin clan to have a life-and-death battle. Feng Baiyang gritted his teeth and threw the battle invitation in his hand away. Then, he led the elders and left. A life-and-death battle? The Qin Emperor's face turned gloomy. However, since things had already come to this, the Qin clan couldn't retreat from this battle. However, why did he feel that there was a hint of a conspiracy behind this? Could it be that the Cloudy Dew immortal sect had other backing? Father, did I cause trouble for the Qin clan? Qin Ling's eyes flashed with a hint of shock. He didn't expect the Cloudy Dew immortal sect to be so decisive. However, this matter was instigated by Su Yuwei alone. Why did the Cloudy Dew immortal sect insist that he killed their disciples? Lung tell me the truth. Did that successor of the Cloudy Dew immortal sect really make the first move? The Qin Emperor looked at Qin Ling. There was no emotion in his golden eyes. With his majestic appearance, if this matter was really caused by Qin Ling, he definitely wouldn't risk his life to fight the Cloudy Dew immortal sect for a son. However, the problem was that Qin Ling wasn't in the wrong, but the Cloudy Dew immortal sect was so overbearing. If he handed Qin Ling over, where would the Qin clan's face be? At the end of the day, in the eyes of these Emperor Realm experts, although descendants were the foundation for the continuation of the clan, benefits were the basis for weighing the pros and cons. Father, I'm not deliberately putting on a brave front in front of Feng Baiyang. I'm willing to use my life to prove the Qin clan's innocence. Qinling took a deep breath. There was a hint of determination in his eyes. Lord Ling Xiao, I can't wait to see you again in the next life. Can you feel it? Haha, Lung, what are you saying? If the Qin clan can't even protect our young master, how can we live up to the name of Supreme Tao? Don't worry, the Cloudy Dew Immortal sect is just putting on an act. After all, if the two Supreme Tao orthodoxies really start a war, the entire eastern border will be plunged into chaos. The Qin Emperor's voice was filled with vicissitudes. His eyes were bright as he looked into the distance. Vaguely, he seemed to feel that there was an invisible hand above his head that was fiddling with the fate of the world. However, since the Cloudy Dew Immortal sect has issued a challenge, we can't back down. Let's go back and discuss this with your great-grandfather. The Qin Emperor's figure disappeared, leaving Qinling standing on the spot alone. He looked a little lost. No matter if it was yesterday or today, he still had some doubts in his heart. Everything that happened in the ancient palace seemed like a dream. It felt a little unreal. However, the people were indeed dead. Everything that happened matched up. But why didn't he see any corpses from the beginning until the end? Conspiracy. This was definitely a conspiracy. The Cloudy Dew Immortal sect was too vicious. They actually set up such a trap just to frame the Qin clan. In comparison, Lord Ling Xiao was still the most righteous and loyal. Young master, I look forward to our next meeting. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.